All right, Tony, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Awesome, and I can hear you. Yay, that's 2 for 2. Welcome, everyone. This is the Morbid Symptoms podcast, and I'm your host, Tara Van Dyke, and I'm here with my co-host, Tony. LA Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So today our topic is the allegation industry, trial by media, and the manufacturing of consent. So a few topics there. Before we get into it, though, I'll give a bit of background about kind of humorous how this came about, this discussion. Oh, oops, sorry. Let me put that down. Anyway, yeah. So welcome everybody. We're gonna so this is how the episode's gonna go tonight. I'm going to introduce what we mean by allegation industry, trial by media, and manufacturing of consent, just very briefly, because it makes more sense when we get into actual real life examples, including one that broke yesterday, I think, when I was preparing this with the Trump verdict. I don't know if you saw that. Well, you must have seen it because you're in LA. That 34 out of 34 counts for fraud?
A payoff, right? Some sort of.
But it was on business documents or something. So fraudulent or I don't know. Anyway, they got him on bad business documents related to the Stormy Daniels payments for in exchange for her silence. So, and Stormy Daniels, as you know, is an adult performer. I don't know if she's still an adult performer, but I think that's what that was about. But when we were putting together this episode, that wasn't at the forefront of our mind, but of course it fits in with our topic today. So if we can, we'll touch upon that at some point. But the reason why I got Tony on the horn yesterday, and I'm like, okay, are you still available for Friday? Because I have a really great idea for a podcast. And basically what it was is that I'm in a group chat on X. There's about 60 of us or so. And it's basically people who are both quote unquote turfies. So we know what a woman is, and we're critical of gender ideology, but we're also not genocidal. So we're very much opposed to what is going on in Israel, Palestine. And that apparently is a fairly small group. So someone decided to set up a group just to, group chat. So if you want kind of a safe space in X, away from all like the Zionists and all the craziness, and that you could go there and not feel like you're totally the only one who knows that they're peeing on our foot and telling us it's raining. But anyway, I have Andrew Tate comes up in my feed sometimes. And I used to follow him, and I followed him because my son and his friends were really into him for a while. Not so much anymore. For about a year and a half, though, it was like top G this and top G that. So I was like, So I'm like, who is this cat? Check into it. And then I looked into it a bit, and I was just like laughing. I'm like, dude, I mean, I go, look, it's bromides. It's a brand. He's filling a niche because after 10 or 15 years of, toxic masculinity and gay straight men and metrosexuality and Timothy Chalamet and, all this stuff, it's like, of course, the zeitgeist would produce a couple of characters like Andrew Tate. So I was like, look, don't send him any money. Don't join Hustler University.
Is that what he had?
Oh God, yeah, I guess think so. What else? And I'm like, yeah, it's nice that he's, these conservative values, but I'm pretty sure he ran like some sort of girl cam video business for a while. Again, don't quote me. So I was just like, let's calm down. But when you have, your 15, 16, 17-year-old son, I'm not going to forbid him. I can't keep him from watching something. I mean, you can limit the Google time on the devices, and that just makes it more of a forbidden fruit. And anyway, so I'll get back to Andrew Tate in a minute. So anyway, sorry. So he tweeted something in response to Gaza, I think, or was it? It was, I can't remember if it was Gaza or if it was about Rishi Sunak or something. And I thought it was a funny tweet. And so I thought, I don't know if I'll share it because, of course, most of the people in there are going to be like, Andrew Tate's the devil man, He's like Jack the Ripper 2024 or whatever. So, but I thought, well, whatever. I'm just going to post it. And I mentioned something like, yeah, I realize he's the devil, but this is a good tweet, or we got to give the devil a due. Sometimes he has good tweets. And a few people in the chat just like, it's not a good tweet. He's a rapist. He's this and that and all this stuff. And I'm just like, well, he's he's been accused of crimes, but there hasn't been, it hasn't, basically just kind of like, hold on, nobody was there. You haven't seen so I get that. Yeah, you could say he's a scumbag, a sexist, a grifter, talking shit on the internet all the time. But none of that's illegal. But it was just like, and someone was like, "Oh, this isn't your best feminising. This isn't you're not doing your best feminising today." And I was like, "Fuck you, man." It's like, so I didn't say that, but it was basically like, what? So I'm a bad feminist because I don't go around calling people rapists who haven't been convicted of rape. And so I was kind of like, I was in a bit of a mood. So I made a meme and said like, so and so's feminism for dummies. Those feminism for those dummy memes. Like blank for mummies. And I was like, so I put the person's handle on there, and for dummies, so and so's feminism for dummies. Step 1, call Andrew Tate a feminist on X. Step 2, call women who don't call Andrew Tate a rapist on X bad feminists. And that's basically, then you're really doing feminism right, Tony.
Right.
And so kind of, I could have dropped it, but I didn't. And then of course someone comes in and starts wanting to, show all these things from the internet about bad things that Andrew Tate said or did or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but that's not, that's stuff on the internet. So I don't dispute the fact that he's, whatever you want to call him. He has his niche, and he's not my thing. And the only reason why I know anything about him is because I had to keep tabs on, who this top G was that my son was talking about. So anyway, that made me think of this Russell Brand article that I had written way back when, before there was anything to deal with. Let me see if I can find it. Oops. My slides are doing really weird things. I don't know what's going on with my internet here, but we'll see. We'll work around it because I'm on a different system. But anyway, let's see if I'll put this up. Okay, I'm gonna put us here for a second. Technical difficulties. Weird. I don't know. Something very weird's going on. Oh well. Okay. So you can still hear me, Tony?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my system. Oh well. We'll see if we can figure it out. Let's go back to this. Anyway, so I don't even remember. Was that in September when that whole brand thing kicked off? I think it might have been September.
For some reason, I feel like it was a few years ago. I don't.
Yeah, well, it feels like it. Yeah, but it was right before.
Was it?
Yeah, it was right before October 7th happened.
Oh.
Anyway, so I wrote this article called for Substack, so not article. So it was basically like the branding of Russell Brand, and I used Herman and Chomsky's manufacturing of consent. 5 filters is a kind of structure for that. Right. Not to get into whether or not he's guilty or not, because I don't know, but just to understand the media event that was happening, and to make sense of that. And so after having this thing about, this whole Andrew Tate's a rapist and you're a bad feminist if you don't call him a rapist, I'm paraphrasing. That was basically the gist. Mm-hmm. Rape apologist, whatever. So it made me think of this article, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I thought, maybe now would be a good time to do a podcast on it, because it's not it's not so radioactive anymore, because like you said, it seems like it was years ago. But people, with all the other things going on in the world, that's kind of gone off in the back burner. And I thought, okay, but I could have used that framework that I used in the Brand article to Tate, to Trump, to anybody. It doesn't have to be a famous person. I'm just mentioning these names because people tend to know about them. And again, it doesn't say anything about if someone's guilty or innocent. It just gets at how it's being, basically how the money and the politics behind the allegation industry, how, making allegations is a way to control, but it's also a way to make money. And you get the different sides going against each other. And the way the media presents it, of course, doesn't take long for it to affect how we tend to assume somebody's guilty or innocent or worthy of our the benefit of the doubt or not, even if we're not really aware of it. So I was like, okay, let's do that. So that's the kind of the backstory of this podcast. And I've been talking a lot. Do you want to say anything before we get into more about the allegation industry and trial by media and all that?
The only thing I could say for those watching is what she's going to differentiate is basically media phenomena versus, this man being accused of sexual assault. That's two different things, and that's what she's hinting at. So I think that's what I just would love to tell our audience to not conflate both. You're talking about the media phenomena and of this man, and then the other, which we'll get into, is speaking on, and it's not even criminal yet, but criminal allegations of sexual assault against this man. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, like I'm saying, I think this is important to admit that neither Tony or I dare say anybody, they weren't there when the alleged events took place, and they haven't gone through a trial where the evidence is presented and defended and challenged. So all people have is their feeling. Yeah, they have a feeling or their opinion about that, but they don't know. Nobody knows. Well, usually we'd hope the people involved would know. But then, of course, people can have differing interpretations of things. But I'm sure you would remember raping someone and being raped, of course. But I'm not getting into the whether or not these people are guilty or innocent. I'm getting in very much so focusing on the media phenomena and the kind of the political and the politics and the economics of this kind of cultural trend that maybe started probably with O.J. Simpson, but has been with us and it's only gotten greater, I think, as we have more. It wasn't just cable, and then it was satellite, and then it was, now you have the internet and social media and all these things that we forget, or even if we know how easy it is for our consent to be manufactured, even if we know it consciously, it still is, it still is happening all the time. Would you agree? Or do you have something to add?
Especially when, and I guess we'll get into this, when when the media apparatus uses, I would say hip cultural liberalism to, convey a certain narrative because it knows that a certain type of demographic is going to automatically, subconsciously roll with it. Because it's in that form, it's quote unquote the MSNBC wine mom. You know what I mean? As much as it is.
Well, it's not just the wine moms, but yeah, I know what you mean.
As much as it'll be,
Hey, what are you talking about? What are you saying about wine moms? Although this is juice. I'll go to the hard stuff later, because this is gonna be a raucous night, people. And I'm glad that Tony was available because I was like, I need to say some things.
You
And I always like when we have kind of, it's nice to have the yin and the yang, the male, the female and male, yes, etc. And we're almost the same generation. No, just kidding. Technically, I could be his mom, but I would have been quite young. All right, enough of that. So, couple of things. So we're going to get into kind of some general comments, and I'm going to use pictures because that's always handy. And the main points that I want to make, and what I tried to begin to make with my brand Substack, which again was only, I think, in September or October, but it feels like years ago, given what's going on, given the genocide and the gaslighting and the craziness that's going on in the world in regards to Israel, Palestine, and other things. However, we're going to leave that to the side tonight. We're going to get into sexual politics and he said, she said, and weaponization of sexual misconduct and assault allegations and using that for political or economic aims or both. And we're going to get into that. And then we're going to, again, through this group chat that I'm in, or maybe I'm not going to be in anymore, but I was in. Again, since that weird kind of, this avalanche of rabid Andrew Tate hate, which I get. I get why people don't like the dude. Okay, I'm not here to defend him, but it was just like this, so certain that he was a rapist and a multiple rapist, and a trafficker and all this stuff, and maybe he is. Totally could be. If he ends up being guilty of these things, it would not surprise me. But then again, I don't know, and they don't know either. As far as I'm assuming that you don't know either, Tony.
No, I have. I don't even know anything about him. I tried checking it. Remember when you were trying to get me to watch his stuff? I was all like, okay, fuck it, I will. I tried watching it. I could not get 5 minutes through that shit.
I know.
I was like, what the hell is this? This guy was like, I don't even want to get into it, but I was like, I've never checked him out. But I have seen clips of like sparring and stuff like that, which I think, I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if he's a boxer or is he like,
I think he used to be an MMA or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, because I was my son, for like a year or so, his favorite thing to do during dinner was to bring up something, what I would start to call a Tateism. But he would bring it up like it was his idea or notion. I'm listening to this. I'm like, what? I go, what is that? What are you talking about?
Right.
And so I think I put you on. I'm like, why don't you go watch this dude and report back to me? Because I'm not. I mean, not that you're a teenage boy, but you at least have the same, the same sex. But yeah, I was like, I couldn't. But he's obviously really popular, so I was like, all right. But anyway, enough of that. So the first thing is the first problem with the allegation industry, and what's also I call accuser culture or the allegation industry, is that making the accuser holy makes everyone innocent until accused and then automatically guilty. So if you have the accusers always put up here and the accused is down here, then whoever is obviously accused, especially if it's anyone who we tend to think as the stronger party, whether it be the man versus the woman, or a class difference, or a country, or a country difference, or a racial difference, that the accuser is, if they become holy, you can't say anything about it without being called, a racist or a rape apologist or a woman hater or a man hater or a child, or whatever it is.
Right.
This is, I would put forth as a problem, and what I would say is it's totalitarian. Actually, is what it. If it gets too pronounced, is what it can be. So that's one of the themes I want us to maybe touch back on, maybe, or if we, or at least we'll circle back at the end. So, for example, I'm sure a lot of people, at least in the West, in the United States and the UK, are probably familiar with the actor Kevin Spacey. And it came out, it was a couple years ago, maybe, I can't remember how, maybe at the time of the trial, so here it says Spacey, so 9 charges. And he was charged of sexual misconduct, maybe sexual assault. I don't know if it was also rape, I don't know. But basically, there was at least, it turned out that 9, I think it was all men, and who were young men at the time. I don't know, I think they were all of legal age, but again, I'm not exactly sure. Accused him of inappropriate sexual behavior or conduct or whatever. And he was, of course, canceled. And, he had some show on HBO, House of Cards, I think. And he was, he was pretty much Hollywood, not just also top A-list actor, but also on Broadway and also in London. I think maybe he even had a theater there. But of course, that was like, it was done. And but it took a couple of years, but he was found not guilty I think it was right before Christmas. So he was found not guilty on all charges. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing about allegation industry and accuser, running the accuser holy, is that this hardly gets any press attention. Everybody will think, okay, Kevin Spacey, he was a predator against these young men, young male actors, whatever. And then this goes on for maybe 2 years, 3 years. I don't know how long it has been. And then it comes out at the end that he's been found not guilty, which of course there's guilty, not guilty, and innocent. Being the court saying you're not guilty doesn't necessarily mean that nothing wrong was committed, but that the threshold of evidence preponderance of evidence and beyond beyond a reasonable doubt, if that's also the case in the UK, was not achieved. So they had to find them not guilty. I didn't watch the trial. I don't know, but anyway, found not guilty. So not guilty. Okay. But at this point, the damage is done. He will forever be associated with this, even though he was found not guilty, which doesn't mean that that none of his behavior was, problematic or even highly problematic, but it didn't rise to the level of a crime, or according to the jury and the judge. I think it was a judge, maybe it was a jury. I don't know, judge or jury, both. This is something to keep in mind. So I think this is part and parcel of the problem, is that sexual politics, especially since the Me Too thing, it's become like, if someone says we have to believe women, that's fine. You start talking about believing men, that's a whole other story. And of course, the problem with believe women, full stop, or believe all women, is that it makes all men guilty by definition, which, of course, if you think about it for any time of it, is bullshit. Women can lie, women can cheat, women can steal, women can do all the kinds of things that men can do. I'm not saying with the same modalities or ways, but yeah, men are around 30% stronger than women. They can dominate us physically. Of course, they are, rape and sexual assault is no joke. This idea that, or could just be, doesn't necessarily have to be a sexual crime or allegation. It can be other things. The idea that somehow, this idea also plays into almost like the virgin whore thing. And what I mean by that is that if this is the case, that what this also does is infantilize women and sanctifies them, which is basically the same thing. So it's just this, it's really problematic. So of course, all allegations should be taken seriously. They should be investigated, whether it be at the office or at the school or at the police station or whatever. Mm-hmm. This idea that we should, because if you presume the person, the person making the accusation is totally honest and is interpreting and his memories on board, then basically you're back into accuser culture again, which is the accuser's rendered holy. Which makes it, as soon as somebody's accused, then they're guilty until proven otherwise, or once accused, then guilty. And even if it's a media case, if it's a case that gets a lot of media, or even just within somebody's town, if it's well known, the process becomes the punishment. Yeah. So if it takes somebody 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, if they have the money and the wherewithal, whether it be a man or a woman, because men can also falsely accuse each other, women. Once it's all said and done, the process has become the punishment, even if it turns out that you're found not guilty or exonerated. The reputational damage is done. The time of the time spent, whatever's going on, also the effect on the friends and family and all this. And the cases I'm using today are well-known celebrities. You can imagine people who are not celebrities, who don't have that kind of resources. Maybe they just have to, who knows what, it's a different, so even though there's less media scrutiny, there's also less resources available to defend yourself if you find yourself being accused for something that you did not do or don't feel is being accurately portrayed or attains the level of a crime. So another thing that, and I want to go back to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard again, because I don't know if you were paying attention to this, and is this that there was so much press on this and so much, ginning it up, and the allegation industry and the trial by media, 24/7 for a long time. Well, not 24/7, but for a long time, even after the whole trial was done, and it was videotaped so people could watch it and see everything. And even after it was done and it withholded and it withstood the judgment, withstood any appeals, you still have these Johnny Depp Amber Heard camps. It's become like an identity group, like a sporting team thing. They can't let go of it. And every once in a while it still erupts online. And I think it's because people were so inundated, either
Yeah.
on the Depp side or the Heard side, that even though he won his case, that
Right.
he was defamed, it's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough for them. And on the Heard side, it was a miscarriage of justice, and she was, victim shamed or whatever it is. And it's just never gonna. I mean, it's just become a new kind of I don't know, sporting event, zero sum game type of thing.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Hold on. I just need to plug my laptop in before.
Oh, Tony.
I know. I'm sorry, but shit.
So,
But yeah,
when the whole Russell, while Tony's getting his, I'm going to pull you down for a bit then until you're back together. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So while Tony's getting his equipment in order, back when this brand thing was tipping off, I'm looking at this and I'm like, it was okay. What I was saying is that again, a lot of the people that I followed on X, I basically got on X because of the whole sex gender thing. So I'm basically at myself. I am a TERF, so I'm a person who knows that there are men and women, and that sex doesn't change. And then, even if you really want or believe that you're the opposite sex, you're not, which doesn't mean you can't, call yourself what you want and dress how you want and whatnot. But the idea that women are women, and that women's rights and safeguarding are important, and that it's ridiculous, the idea that a man can identify as a woman and then get entrance into all our spaces and language and whatnot. So, but that's not really what we're talking about tonight, but just to give you some context. So when this brand thing happened, I saw a lot of quote unquote TERFs or gender criticals just really jumping on, just buying into all this and just, kind of participating in the, I'll call it a Mitch hunt, since he's a man. And the hypocrisy of it is that the media was doing to him what the media had been doing to gender critical women, or just, we'll just say TERFs, yeah. So women who know that men can't be women, no debate, transphobes. So anyway, when the media was doing to Russell Brand, the same thing that they were doing to the same thing they had been doing to people like J.K. Rowling and Julie Bindel and people who have less name recognition, who dared to say things like there's two sexes and sex matters and men aren't women, this type of thing, were just totally monstered in the press and called, basically everything from transphobe to hateful to racist. For some reason that came up. And never really allowed to present their arguments very much at all. So the consent was manufactured in that towards quote unquote trans women and trans men, and away from women who were trying to raise their concerns about the rights conflicts and child safeguarding issues that it's raised. So Tony is back with us. So as I've started to do quite a bit in X, as what I'm calling meme therapy, because you start seeing the same thing over and over again. Like, who wants to type out this shit? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so this is just one of the memes I made in September, I think, in the when the Russell Brand thing was all over the place. So we have this guy, and I can't remember the actor's name, but he's a very good actor. So
Breaking Bad,
yeah, Breaking Bad, yeah, he was the
cop, right?
Yeah, he was the
DEA.
He was Walter's brother-in-law. I think. Yeah. Anyway, so, and the happy face is when I see you. So I was having basically Twitter, and got kind of ugly battles with TERFs and gender criticals, because I was skeptical of this brand thing. I was skeptical of what I was being asked to believe and to participate in. Just skeptical. I never said free him, he's innocent, he would never do anything, nothing like that. Just saying this seems very, let's take a moment. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do you remember what it was like there, or?
Yeah, I remember for both examples, the Johnny and Amber thing, and then also with Russell, his situation. Yeah, it was definitely campish and you know, very sort of Roman chariot race. I support the Greens. I'm gonna stab you, or
Yeah.
like, it's definitely verging on a soccer riot. You know
Well,
what I
no,
mean?
it's just like, I don't know about that. Some of the stuff Amber Heard says, I don't know. Ah, rape apologist. It's just like,
Right?
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Or other way, or like, I think that, it's like, what was he doing with someone that young and blah, blah, blah. Oh,
Yeah.
you're a man hater. I'm like, okay, yo. But it
Oh,
was
I have
more,
so many comments towards all these things, but like I'll wait
yeah.
till we get to that point. But.
Yeah. Anyway, so so the memes I'm showing now were it basically targeted, we're in response because I was posting some stuff about like this is like Russell. All of a sudden, I woke up and everybody has Russell Brand derangement syndrome. It's just like crazy, and so of course you can imagine that some people weren't too happy with that. Just like the response I got to sharing an Andrew Tate a tweet about I can't remember if it was about Rishi Sunak or about Israel. Just the barrage of how a terrible, wrong think and a bad feminist, and I, don't care about women and who knows what, paraphrasing a bit. So here's one that I liked. When I see you challenging the media's branding, any dissent of gender ideology is transphobic. So that's very good. But when I see you challenging the media's branding of brand, that is very bad. So there's a theme here, just basically the hypocrisy. Yeah. And here's one, because you remember that, well, we still know like the do you condemn Hamas that was still going on, but for the first like 4 or 5 months,
Yeah,
after, it was like, and it was always they would say,
Hamas.
go ahead, Tony.
No, that would be the first thing out of everyone's mouth. Like, oh, do you like even someone in my personal life, when her and I got into this, she was like, well, do you think Hamas is a terrorist group? And I was like, no. So yeah, like, it was for the first 4 or 5 months, it was exactly like that was the first thing it would come out of someone's mouth,
Yeah. And of course, it's not just like, oh, I'm curious. The subtext is, do you condemn Hamas or are you a terrible person? I mean, that's the that's the subtext. Yeah. So here it's not yes or no. It's like, do you condemn Hamas or are you a terrorist sympathizer that hates Jews or whatever it is? And it's the same thing. It's like, do you condemn Top G, which is Andrew Tate's thing?
Right.
Or are you a rapist sympathizer and a raging misogynist? I mean, that's just the way it is. I was like, all right. And of course, this is innocuous, not, so the media monstering someone I like, this is terrible. This is, not how we should run a democratic society. This is dangerous. But when it's doing it to someone you don't like, then it's just, I don't know, just desserts or Schadenfreude or, who knows? Then it's a different ball game. And so, of course, I'm not perfect at all. I have my hypocrisies, but I hope nothing is blatant as, as this. And of course, again, I was targeting TERFs and JC. Well, not targeting, but I was getting the most flack from them because at that point, those were the people I followed the most and who followed me. I wasn't going out trying to antagonize people with my my due process and manufacturing consent concerns. So it's like trans women are women, no debate. We didn't like that. Brand is guilty, no debate. It's like, okay, was how my experience was. So anyway, before we get into my article, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, you guys, I just want to pull out some key points that I think can be applied not just to the brand case, but to any kind of media blitzes that we see in general. Before we get to that, is there anything you have on your mind, Tony?
About all of this, yeah. Well, I mean, I find it interesting that at this juncture in time, that it has become so campish based upon the aesthetics of how a human being will present themselves, where Andrew Tate, Johnny Depp, Russell Brand, they're all expressing their own sense of personhood. And that seems to be the issue that a certain type of other human has an issue with to an extreme degree. And how this became this way, in my humble opinion, started during, at least here in the United States, it started during President Bush's administration and the rise of Fox News, where Fox News.
The first Bush or the second Bush?
I mean, the second Bush. The second Bush.
I thought you were going to say Clinton. Okay, but George W. Bush. Okay.
No,
it's a whole Lewinsky thing, yeah. But go ahead. Sorry.
True. Yeah, true. In terms of spectacle and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm talking more so in terms of like you have an issue with how somebody is. You know what I mean? I think that sort of came about through Fox News and President George H.W. Bush's administration, where it was such a through Fox News, it was such a bombardment against like how the Nazis did with the Jew, how the Nazis had to portray the Jew a certain way. Fox News and the Bush administration and that whole sort of nexus portrayed a certain type of human as being effeminate and all this kind of stuff. And that created as a response from the type of person that's being accused of being like that, that created in return another for that type of person who's being alleged to be like that to then do the same towards a type of person that is alleged to be what this caricature has become. And so that sort of birthed this, but then also we have to look at it from a sort of like a socialist perspective in regards to how, you know, how the sort of forces of ideology work, where they will give the public and the masses these two camps of identity to sort of express whatever subconscious discontent they feel towards material reality and their own bad material conditions, bad healthcare, poverty, and all this. You know, that has become more of like the lane that people are participating within this, where it's like this is now a substitute to trying to talk about, well, I need, you know, to get my teeth fixed. I need a better job. Wages haven't increased since the 70s. You know, that the Johnny Depp, the Russell Brand, that replaces that, and then that becomes for people, you know, their means of expressing, oddly enough, some weird form of social justice, I guess.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I think if I can make, you're kind of elaborating on what the term culture war tries to encapsulate. Yeah. As opposed to class politics or political economy, you get culture, you get to kind of red meat culture stuff.
Yeah.
It kind of plays out. So, and so instead of looking at material issues and, you know, the economy, stupid type of stuff, we get into Depp or Heard, Andrew Tate's the top Jew, Andrew Tate's the devil, Trump is the devil, Biden's the devil, who's the devil, you know, this kind of, you know, woke, anti-woke,
right, and both
vegan or you know, carnivores or all these types of things.
both here in the United States, I don't know if it's the same in the United Kingdom, but here in the United States, from 2004 on, both political parties have stressed that dynamic more so than any other time in history in the United States. Is like both political parties now uniformly stress this sort of quote unquote.
Tony, I'm sorry. Keep on talking. I need to address something, but keep on talking. I can hear you, but I'm going to drop down from the screen for a moment. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, yes. I'm solo here. Okay. So as I've been saying, you know, in regards to, like, let's take for example how Amber Heard is seen. Well, if you notice, probably from the early 2010s onwards, there's been a sort of fetishization of the female. The female is in that Madonna whore complex, ironically, weirdly enough. I don't know why they don't see that. Oh, Tara's back. No, yeah. So I'm commenting. I'm telling our audience, like trying to explain to our audience, like let's take Amber Heard for example. How she's seen by these. I don't know what the right terminology is, but I'm just going to say phenomena. How she's seen by these phenomena in these camps. She's seen in this like fetish, like she's very fetishized as this like early 20 like this 2010s like sort of feminist Madonna, as like you perfectly said. This like pure like
she was taken advantage of by an older man.
And it's in the prism, but it's in the prism of this sort of new type of like these new type of aesthetics, these new that come from the 2010s academia. It's informed by a new form of language that these kind of people use. It's informed by LGBT. It's informed by women of the cities. Like this
women
whole,
of the cities.
Yeah, it's
that, I just like the term. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what it's. So she becomes visually the sort of catch-all thing to encompass all of those things. But
no angel, let's just say.
But
she's a complicated figure. She's a complicated lady.
Right, but then on the flip side, you have people who are both looking at Johnny Depp in the sort of I would call classical pop cultural liberal 20th century type of lens, where like the celebrity can do no wrong. We've grown up with him. We've watched him in all these different. We watched him when he was on 21 Jump Street all the way through. Like we've grown up with him. He's like the cool alternative guy. So there's that's what's so interesting about these things. Like it was that was a lot of that kind of came out too. And then you also had this sort of new dynamic of like that men are unfailable and like it's
infallible.
Sort of infallible. Yeah, it's this men's rights kind of shit. It's like, oh well, I saw like a bunch of dudes say, oh well, I'm a father and I've never gotten any due in fucking family court. I support Johnny Depp. So it becomes
okay, it's like because they've been taking and that's what because I see what you're saying, but I'll wait till you're finished and then I'll chime in. So, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and so, but in reality, Johnny Depp is, in reality, and I love him, but I love him because I'm an artist too. But in reality, he's a hedonistic, middle-aged artist.
Libertine. He's a libertine.
Yeah, he, that like, and at this point, if you read what the court transcripts and you kind of get a sense of the last probably like 5 to 8 years of how he's been living, it's been he's been totally living like extreme, like extreme, extreme drugs, like booze, like.
But it also came out that she was right there with him, So it wasn't, I mean, she seemed to be less like, they were. It seemed like he would go until he couldn't go anymore, and she would. She wasn't like that, but it was quite, let's say, a volatile pairing. Those two. A toxic coupling.
Yeah, and this is another aspect of the sort of irony within all of that, is because parallel, and I want our audience to really grasp all of these different things. Parallel to the sort of moralistic bourgeois morality that a lot of people are judging both of them on, is this other sort of like what Zizek calls enlightened hedonism. This culture of like Adam 22, of like hip hop music, of the mainstreaming of women who are porn stars, and they get millions of views doing mainstream interviews, talking nonsense, weed smoking, drugs, like fucking anything that comes your way. Like, so it's like like there's all these different things in the pot, and it's like,
Mhm.
but I also want to stress to our more sort of like socialist minded friends, or friends who are more like who don't identify readily as Christians. I want to stress that we can't ever avoid. You use that word modality, like we can't ever avoid the. This is why I'm laughing, because we can't ever avoid the Christian
Yeah.
modality of morality in any of these ways. Because if you look at it, the prism of morality is always filtered through this like latent Christian sort of sense of morality, you know, and
In the
that's what.
West, for sure. And I think that there's also, but I don't think, I mean, um, even any of the monotheistic religions, I'm sure that when it becomes to how we regard these types of ultra libertine, hedonistic, even if while enlightened, like they have, like maybe they're vegan and they, are concerned about their carbon footprint, but yet they're having all kinds of sex and trauma in every place and doing everything, every kind of drug, and trying to get every kind of, experience that they can. And maybe I'm just jealous, because I can't do that. But no, I think this is quite interesting. And I wanted to circle back a bit when you said what these two figures became emblematic for. So Amber Heard was like any woman who'd ever been, you could put everything was getting projected onto these two people. So Amber Heard became like the face case, another one of the face cases for the Me Too thing, and we found out in the trial that was quite on purpose, that she wanted to. It seemed, at least that I found that believable, and the jury did as well. We'll just say the fact that that she wanted very much to have herself be associated as one of the heroines of the Me Too movement. And then you have Johnny, like I said, like you mentioned, it wasn't just rich dudes who had gotten, who were maybe being, for lack of a better word, shook down or punished for who knows what. But also anybody who, has gotten their kids taken away from them, or is behind on child support, or has to pay too much child support, or feels like that the family law is tilted to, or it has the family law is tilted in favor of the woman almost by definition. Whereas, so I think that that's quite clear, and maybe that helps explain why people were so invested in this. I mean, it was knockdown, drag out. It was crazy when I started
Yeah,
following it.
it was.
And I thought, I was in between research jobs. So I'm like, okay, I approached like, because I thought, what am I going to do, a Substack? I don't know. So I thought, okay, I'm going to watch this thing. And then also, that's when I also discovered the whole, what they call it, like a law tube. I guess there's all these lawyers who will, they have streams and they kind of try to break down the cases. Quite entertaining, actually. They also fight a lot. And so, I'm just kind of watching it, and I didn't really know anything about her except for that I knew that there was quite a bit of an age difference. And of course, I know Johnny Depp, and I was never, I liked him. My kids like Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and he was never, because back in my day, you had pinups, you had like Tiger Beat,
Right.
and you'd have posters on your wall of the guys or the girls you're really into. I never had a poster of Johnny Depp, not because I hate him or anything, but I was never like, I love you, Johnny. I was into Brad Pitt, so I out myself there. I like Brad. Anyway, he was on my wall. So I feel like I came into it with a pretty open mind. I don't know. I knew that he had drug issues and whatnot, so I don't know. So, but and then the more I watched it, I thought, this woman is the most untrustworthy person, the most terrible witness I've ever seen. It was just like one thing after the other. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And people are like, well, he's also, and when Johnny got up there and was doing his thing, I thought, okay, they brought out all the skeletons and owned up to all this stuff. And he just came across just more forthcoming, more honest. And I remember it was funny, but even then on the team heard people like, well, he's an actor and he's won awards. I'm like, she's an actress. She's not 16.
Great.
She was really putting on, and you would see her in the show. You would see her during the trial. She'd be trying to do something, and she's always constantly looking and kind of seeing if who in the jury was kind of vibing with her,
Right.
like constantly, like, is this working for you? Are you like, and it was just like, it was, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if her legal team wouldn't tell her no or what, but I'm like, I don't know, or they just wanted the money. And of course, hindsight's 2020. But so the longer I followed this trial, the more I was like, now but I was a bit surprised. I thought that how I thought this trial was going to end is, since you have regular people in the jury, and they basically spent like 6 weeks of their life listening to these rich people and their kind of libertinism, and they're having to hear all these kind of these drunken fights, and her saying really terrible things to him, and him saying some terrible things to her, and just this, and I think they'll find, I thought they would find on his behalf that he was defamed, but not give him very much money, like maybe like 100, maybe legal fees or something, or some sort of negligible amount. But when they came back and were like, and awarded that, I thought, oh, they must have been, I don't know. Yeah. So it was a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, she has to pay him like $10 million. Right?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
a lot.
No. So again, because defamation things are harder to prove in the States. So
sure.
you have to,
I understand from his perspective, he had a lot, because because that Hollywood system is going to abide by the cultural liberal, like they're gonna go with the sort of allegation culture, so he really had to, like, that's the reason why he had to do this shit, because like he had to prove to his potential employer,
if you wanted to work again, or get some of his reputation back,
because he had got fired off the Harry Potter.
He was done. He, quote unquote, canceled. Now he had lots of money, so he wasn't like in the street. But I think the only people that didn't cancel him, I think there was some cologne.
Right. I've seen commercials.
I think that was the only thing. Everything else was like, who are you? We don't like. Sorry, you're a rapist and a wife abuser or whatever. So
True.
Shit, he should have said it, and we're supposed to believe women, so I guess too bad for you, Charlie. Yeah. Fuck on right over there. And our friend Jeff, who wrote the article that's we're going to talk about after mine, would have been totally okay with that. He doesn't care what happens. Thinks it's a price worth paying, a price worth other people paying, but a price worth paying if
right.
But we'll get into that later. I'm sorry. I'm
let's get into the article, because we've kind of been dragging out the Johnny and Amber thing. But
well, we can always cut it out. It's the live stream, baby. It's raw. Right. Wild man. And now he's finally getting it. It's finally coming out, and there's going to be justice for the victims. Very important, that word. And all that. And I'm just like, all right. I'm like, okay, let's look at that. How that happened, or why that would happen. How and why. So for those of you who don't know, Herman and Chomsky wrote a book called The Manufacturing of Consent in 1988. My God. And later on, there was a movie about, not a movie, but a documentary. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just yawning.
Okay. Oh, am I boring you, Tony?
No.
I'm telling you, I'm on a rate. I'm prickly. Okay. So yes. I will cut a Mitch. Okay. So they looked at, they wanted to look at, so what does this mean? This term for them means how, the process of mobilizing and solidifying bias without recourse to state censorship. So how does the media are able to affect how most of us think about things, to the fact that we don't have to be told, or you don't have to have this authoritarian or very overt censorship. There's ways you can mobilize what people think and solidify a certain idea about something. So whether it be Russell Brand is a sex maniac, Andrew Tate's is a rapist, Donald Trump is a Russian agent, Joe Biden is healthy and agile and never been better, or top of his game. Or a pathological sniffer of tween hair. I don't know, whatever it is.
Jesus.
That people and when people that we get these feelings and these ideas, and they're so real to us, we think that they came like sui generis from internal, rather than somehow being inculcated or kind of massaged into us for various mechanisms. But anyway, so they delineated or determined a propaganda model to account for so they want to say basically like, okay, what counts as the news? So we have like the news. Of course, this is in '88. So the news was like 4 channels, 3 or 4, 3 channels. There's in the States, there's ABC, NBC, and CBS, right?
Yes.
And they had the nightly news and the weekend news and whatever, and also the newspapers. So what counts as the news? Because lots of things are happening, but only a certain amount gets determined to be the news. And then within that, what's the question? What's the framing? How is it going to be represented? So what counts as the news? So what gets to be news? And also worthy versus unworthy victims in the mass media's coverage of the U.S. foreign policy during the Cold War. So they weren't looking at all of news media. They're particularly focused on how the media reported on U.S. foreign policy between during the Cold War. Okay, so that's after World War II. So their analysis demonstrated how victims of state violence were sorted into worthy and unworthy categories, with the latter not deserving of any sustained attention or empathy. And you can imagine, so the victims of the people who are victimized by people we don't like, they're worthy victims, and we should care about them, and we should do everything we can to help them. But the people who are hurt by us or our allies deserved it, we're bad, or it was our oopsie, we didn't mean to, we were trying to liberate the women, or protect, protect the world from the scourge of communist spread, or whatever it was. And 2 examples of this, this is quite obvious, is that if you look at how the media is portraying Israeli victims versus Palestinian victims, not only in Gaza, where it's just like, the numbers, I think, what was the last number of Haaretz was 1,100 people killed on October 7th. And now we have at least 50,000 Palestinians slaughtered since then. But even more so than that in the States and also in the UK, there's been hyper focus on how Jewish people feel in the UK with this with the Israeli-Palestine conflict going on, especially when you have a lot of people vocally opposed to Israel's policies, vocally supporting Palestine, and they have the Palestinian flag. There's been this hyper focus on how Jewish people feel, in particular Jewish students, whereas how Arabs feel, or Muslims feel, or especially Palestinians feel, or that apparently is not so much of a consideration. So you get this idea about who we're supposed to have empathy for and who we're not. So who are worthy victims, and who are unworthy victims. But they were showing this in the case in 1988, but I would say that very little has changed. If anything, it's gotten more pronounced because we have more media, not less. Let's see. Do you want to say anything before I go on to the five filters?
No, we'll wait. I'll wait. But I was just saying, very much so. It's gone. It's just doubled down on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so and you can tell that was made in the 80s because you can see the camera that they this graphic. It's like the big Casio, or I don't know what that was. Not the smartphones that we have now, but they wanted to see okay, what are the filters that controls what is considered newsworthy and what's not newsworthy, and then within that, how it's presented and how it's framed, or the narrative is put together, however you want to call it. And they found 5 filters that work together, obviously. So there's ownership. So who owns the media? Advertising, which is the source of revenue. Sources, which means where they get the information, and how they present. And flack is how they keep, is like internal disciplinary mechanism, and then ideology, which affects again the kind of the framing, what we'd call now the narrative, the face cases, the selection of face cases, pictures, words, this type of thing. So in context of, I'm just going to focus on brand with this, but again, you could apply this model to anyone that the media seems to be in consensus with us really, really hating, disliking, or really, really not, or really being like on the side of caring about, to be a bit. This is one way you can kind of create some space and analyze it for yourself if you're so inclined. So in terms of ownership, so I'm going to combine ownership and revenue, sources of revenue. So in 1988, they mentioned that one of the things that had started to change quite drastically is you started to have these media corporations and conglomerates, which is for a long time before, even though you had some, you had like the New York Times and the Washington Post and maybe the Wall Street Journal, you also had, there would be there'd be state newspapers, city newspapers, town newspapers. There was local news, state news, national news. So you had more variety and less concentration of ownership. So some of you might remember that, I don't know if it was a Sunday or what day it was, is that on the same day, it seemed like almost practically every newspaper, online and print edition, and mainstream media news source, all was covering this brand story. It was like an avalanche. And it was like the same pictures and the same phrases, all this stuff. It's just like whoop. And it's like, the thing is that if you didn't have these media conglomerations, this concentration of ownership, something like that would be harder to do or to explain. And as to why they would do it, of course, I have this graphic here, the branding of Russell Brand, and they gorge lustily. So you have, some piggies at the trough, the scandal trough. I mean, they would tell us they really cared about women and justice for the victims and all that, and that it wasn't about the sensationalism and the ratings and the kind of, that had nothing to do with it. So, but also if you have with the news media, so how do they get their revenue? Is that, of course, they need to have as many audience members as possible, because that's also what determines how much money their advertisers are willing to pay for various time slots. Yeah. So one of the reasons why maybe you get more and more scandal coverage or more culture war as we move on from the 1980s on is because that sells, that gets the eyeballs, and it's not impacting anybody's, it's not changing any, class relation. It's not getting workers better wages or eating into looking at foreign policy and the various defense budgets and the various war.
Yeah, it's 2 minutes of hate.
Well, you get a rush,
Yeah.
and and it's also a fall from grace. Yeah. So you have this person who we know, and it's kind of like whatever. First, he was like this fun lethargio kind of, he was quick and funny, and he was, he went through his drug period, and he was the darling of BBC, and he'd also be on Western talk shows and all this. And then and then all of a sudden he veered off into political positions that weren't within the norm, to whatever you want to call it, questioning the establishment or whatever. Then it was like, oh, he's this kind of right. Either people would say he's really right wing or really left wing. You can't be both, but apparently, you can if you're him and other people. Glenn Greenwald as well. And then this fall from grace. So people like that, yeah. And it's sex and it's scandalous and it gives everybody a chance to virtue signal and all kinds of things. So there's the money angle. So in terms of the concentration of ownership, the way that this seemed so coordinated, and who knows what it was, but it's just that if you have all these outlets that are running the same story on the same day in the same way, it's like you couldn't have that if you didn't have this concentration of these large media conglomerates. And of course, they're into viewership, because the more viewers you have, the more advertising dollars you can make. Okay, so that's pretty clear. And it got so crazy after kind of 5 days of like trying to find anyone who ever even like, maybe he accidentally brushed somebody's elbow at a cocktail party or something. It was just like, it was like, oh, he was, I was in a green room with him once, and I don't know what it was. I didn't like the way he brushed against my knee. I don't know if it was, just it was the allegations that were at the heart of this. And then there was like all this other stuff. So I made another meme therapy. I was like, and I was pretty proud of this one. I thought this one still cracks me up. And I'm thinking pretty soon we're going to have Minion 2, Dr. Nefario manipulated me. Because and the reason why is because in addition to the serious allegations that were made in the one article that all streamed from, which I'll get to in a moment when we get to sources, it's like everything's coming out now, and it's like, and again, this persona that he was such a womanizer, and he was like, he's just able to manipulate and get women to, not just sleep with them once, but several times. And maybe if they, do they really want to, or whatever it was. And I was just like, so for people who don't know, Dr. Nefario was, Russell Brand plays the voice of Dr. Nefario in the Minion movies. So I thought pretty soon we're going to have Minion 2 because, no one was safe when Russell was around. Everyone's in danger, and maybe they were. I wasn't there. So anyway, so Minion 2, and this one you can imagine the response that I got, again, because I'm making light of sexual assault, and it's no joke, and all this stuff, and I'm like, all right, yeah, what's going on here with this media circus orgy fest is no joke. I'm sorry, my mistake. And of course everybody's caring about the women, because nothing's better for a woman who is who's dealing with these things than a whole media circus. I'm sure it's fantastic, although they still remained anonymous to this day, I think. Anyway, so sourcing. So another way that the consent is manufactured is through what source of information are used. Do people who quote unquote curate the news for us, or the media, want to broaden out for. So the best information for a for-profit media is that which, or for people who are on a budget. So like say any Tom, Dick, and Harry podcast, of course, is stuff that's freely available, that doesn't cost much time or money. And from what I've seen, all the coverage of the Brand allegations refer to the Times 4-year deep dive article investigation into his life. So here's the two ladies who spent 4 years investigating, trying to talk to anyone who ever had any kind of sexual relationship with Russell Brand. And as he's admitted, he was quite active. He was quite sexually active, promiscuous, whatever the right word is, with it. And so these two ladies tried to track down and find, and this was the article. This was the source that all the other stuff, as far as I understand it, came from. Including there was I can't remember. There's some BBC program, not BBC4, but anyway, he also did like a document. They said they were doing a documentary, and it was based on this investigation. But the women in the documentary aren't the women who were interviewed for this piece. They were actors portraying those women. So
they get to hide their identities.
So just make of that what you will. Anyway,
if I can make something out of that, that's very suspicious in the sense of for them to deliberately remain anonymous, or have it structured where those two women, because we don't even at that point
3 or 4
at that point that makes me kind of think that did MI6 do this? No, because it's like, well,
it is suspicious.
Because if the women aren't being produced, the alleged women who did this investigations and wrote these articles, if they weren't actually produce them, that makes me wonder if they even actually exist. Do you
Well,
understand what I'm saying?
yeah. I mean, I can't get into that. I'm sure that they exist, but what it says is that there's two things. Here's what I know, and again, I'm not an expert on this because I haven't. Again, it seems like this happened years ago. But when I was following it, is that these women never filed. It wasn't like these two reporters went to places where went to, like, to looked and see if anybody had filed a complaint against Russell Brand for sexual misconduct or abuse in, like, London or wherever he lives, in LA, New York, and then they found some and then tried to kind of these women. The women who showcased in this article never filed a complaint against him, in an official criminal complaint against him. So, and they wanted to remain, and they were, fine, they wanted to remain anonymous. Okay. But then it's just to put that out there. So this is what this was based on. So they found 4 women who,
4 anonymous women who never went to the cops, never
no,
went to
I don't, and again, I don't want to get into smearing them. I just want to, because I want to stick with the on the media side. Yeah. I don't know anything about these women. I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know. So anyway, so, they found so anyway, so another thing with in terms of the sourcing is that when this started to come out, people women who had been contacted by these 2 reporters but didn't have anything negative to say about Russell weren't included in this expose. Yeah. So they found 4 cases of people who alleged either bad behavior or to criminal behavior on his behalf, or that he did, and those were who they built this article around. Yeah. But as far as I know, even to this point, there hasn't been any formal charges filed. We don't know who these people. So, like, that's what it says. Like, there hasn't been charges filed. There, like if I wanted to say somebody assaulted me, I would have to go to the police and file a complaint, and then the police should look into it and decide if there's enough to charge the guy, and then the prosecutors have to decide if there's enough to go to trial. I guess I don't know is that necessarily how the relationship between the police and the prosecutor's office works in the UK. So they'd have to say, okay, is there enough evidence here to go to trial, or does it seem, and again, the police can decide that there's not enough to charge, or the prosecutor can decide that it's not enough to take to trial. It doesn't mean that nothing bad happened. It just means it's not enough there's not enough evidence, or whatever, or what to push it ahead. And and there's lots of people who think that the police are a bit too lax on that, and that wouldn't surprise me, but it's not what the topic of our thing is. We're talking about the media aspect in this. So again, so all the stuff. So you might have gotten the idea, if you saw like this wall of newspapers and magazines and online stuff, that there was all these various investigations just happened to come to fruition at the same time. No, there was one. and it gets reiterated and reiterated. You get the idea that, well, they're saying this, and this BBC is saying this, Guardian is saying this, everybody's saying this. So even if you had no impression of him or had a positive impression of him, you start thinking, well, there has to be something there. I mean, they wouldn't do all this. He must have at least done a couple things criminal, and maybe he did, but but that's the effect of manufacturing consent, not of having been actually there when these alleged events took place, or having seen the evidence presented in a trial type format. That's the kind of the key point to make, I think.
Right, and there's something so Machiavellian and ingenious about this this system in that way, because the fact that they can so convincingly, through this example, convince huge swaths of people living in different countries that this man is whatever the heck, is a monster, essentially. Like, it's fascinating. It's ingenious, because it's like they've so thoroughly mastered the art of perception that it's very hard to pierce through it.
Yeah.
It really
Anyway,
is.
Yeah, no, I mean it's that's why the rule of law and due process is important. let's let's have that refrain.
Yeah,
Um,
not only is that important, but it's important that it's actually like materially there, like it's encoded, because
mm,
what provokes an issue in regards to manufacturing consent is that it's totally ethereal. So it's not even something tangible that you can hold on to. Like I could hold on to my Bill of Rights. Like I could actually
yeah,
print it out and hold it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But with this sort of phenomena of creating narratives and consent, it's very ethereal. So that's its strength,
Mm-hmm,
because it's like it rests within someone's mind.
mm-hmm,
It can't
mm-hmm.
ever be tangible. It's the perception.
Yeah, and also another thing that's suspicious about this is that uh, the investigative journalist is kind of a dying breed. So you still have people who do it, but it used to be way more common. So
Mhm.
you get information from your so the government offices have press offices and corporations have press office secretaries or offices and large institutions do, and maybe you go to these kind of you have an interview here or there, but you're not actually there's not a lot of people who are employed to do long-term investigative work. Yeah. So if you think about, let's just say Epstein, for example, or the Tara Reade case for her allegations against Joe Biden, and the Epstein is a good example, is that the Times decided to pay 2 reporters to go on to a 4-year investigation to talk to anyone they could who had had sexual relations of any kind with Russell Brand. That was a choice. Other things could have been used on for that reason. And I don't know if it was these ladies who wanted, if there was these 2 reporters who were kind of like, hey, had to like convince their
Yeah.
powers that be, or if it was someone like, hey, we really want to, there must be something here. Because it's also the fact that it's like when the full force, like let's say that when they talk about the weaponization of government. So let's say that I pissed somebody off, and all of a sudden the IRS, the tax person, is going to look into everything I ever did for like 30 years or something. Now, is it within their right to do that? Yeah, but why is it being done? So if I don't know if anybody who, and I'm saying not that most people have to worry about, I would assume not most people don't have to worry about criminal sexual behavior in their past, but in terms of skeletons or bad behavior, I mean, if 2 journalists would spend 4 years going over every aspect of my life, I would not come out smelling like like a rose. I mean, I haven't committed any, I haven't. I would be surprised if someone accused me of a sex crime, but who knows? I mean, I had my rowdy days. But anyway, so that is also interesting. Like, how many other reporters are paid to, or are assigned to go to spend 4 years researching one particular person, when that person is Russell Brand? It's not, a leader of state or
Yeah.
Bill Gates or whoever.
Yeah. Russell
It's Russell
Brown.
Brand, because that makes sense, doesn't it? That they would spend that much time on that, just because they had a sense that there was something there, even though there were no charges at that point, or now
Right.
I think as well. Yeah.
And to the fact that, again, and the women in this image here, those are the 2 actresses, right?
No. Those are the 2 reporters.
Oh, I thought you said it was 2
No.
actresses.
This is as far as and I could be wrong. This Times was the investigation that launched all this. So 2 Times reporters spent 4 years. I don't know if it was the only job they did. They worked on this investigation to Brand for 4 years. And this was the sole source of all the information behind all the news coverage initially. Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple days later, a few days later, after this Times expose dropped, another channel in the UK did a documentary, I'm putting this in quotes, on Russell Brand.
That
And
quick.
that was where they had the actors,
Okay.
instead of these women who were accused them, they had it was like a dramatic reenactment of the interview between these 2 women and the 4 women that had
Alleged. All
yeah,
stuff, yeah.
yeah. That's the 2 things.
Okay.
Because
So
that's normal. That's
so
normal. That's normal what happens. Yeah.
did anybody ever look into the background of these two women?
Probably, but I don't know. Again, because even at the thick of this, then all of a sudden October 7th happened, and
Right.
I don't
Yeah, 'cause
know.
I'd be keen on trying to figure out what their background is. Because
Yeah, I mean that's
this
true, but yeah, it could
this
just be that it was a job. They were assigned it, and who knows? I
yeah,
don't. Again, we don't know.
because
But
because you're right. Because not to interrupt you, but because it's
no,
like
please.
who's going to put I don't know how much that investigation would have cost, but it obviously would have been costly over 4 years.
Well, they'd have to go to L.A. and New York, all over the place, because Russell left his seed in a lot of places.
Right. So
Sorry for the image. He was
yeah,
active on at least 3 continents.
yeah. I remember when I was a teenager. He was engaged to Katy Perry. So
Yeah. I think
like
that was after he. I think that was after he had gone. Had what's the word? A recovery, because there was a period of time when he was drinking and drugs, and like hardcore drugs. Yeah, like I think heroin and that.
I remember.
And then
Yeah,
he stopped all that, and I think the Katy Perry thing was after that. But he was still had quite the reputation of being kind of like this kind of charming Lothario.
yeah. I used to. Yeah, I liked him a lot when I was younger. I remember watching his documentary.
Very charming.
Yeah, I remember watching.
Funny.
Yeah, I remember watching his documentary when I was younger, and he explained how he had went through homelessness and being a heroin addict and all this kind of different stuff, and that he loved Che Guevara and all that kind of stuff. But to that's what's strange about this is that now I know he's a notable figure and all this stuff, but to put that amount of resources over 4 years and then you can only find 4 people, and the fact that a documentary just happens like that on this stuff, and then it's amplified, and then also across 2 different countries, you have Sky News, you have CNN, you have all these different, like all of them are uniform in regards to their messaging. In regards to this man, there's something like
the talking points went out.
Yeah, the talking points went out.
The press kit went out.
It's like who is quote unquote manufacturing, because it's not the editors. It isn't solely like in some sort of in the Times editorial room where these editors in this editorial room within the Times, then they send whatever their notes or whatever to CNN, to all these different, no, there's something for it to be this. Yeah, for this to be this coordinated, this uniform, there's something there. There's something.
Yeah.
There's something, and I think, and I know you always want to, you always pull me back when I go to this, but
that's my job. You pull me back, Tony, and I pull you back. That way we don't get arrested for hate speech.
Yeah, but there is something called domestic psyops that the CIA does run. And anybody can Google this. This is documented,
Hold on for a second. Anybody who's watching this, don't start smoking. It's bad for you. And I smoke sometimes, and sometimes I don't. But I'm under, the world is coming to well, hopefully not. So anyway, I'm going to have a cigarette. But anybody who's watching, don't smoke. Don't start. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, there is a definite, I mean, we do know that that the feds do, they do monitor, these editorial boards and these editorial rooms, most notably with the big newspapers.
Well, we think they do, yeah.
No, they do. I mean, I guess. Well. Okay, all right, fuck it then. I guess we think they do. We know they do, right? We know that the feds monitor, the New York Times editorial room. We know that the feds monitor the Washington.
I don't even think they have to monitor. I think they have good relations.
Yeah,
they have good relations. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at. So
I don't think they have to bug the place.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. Because let's look at, so there's essentially scant evidence that this man is an alleged sexual abuser. But we do know that there's more than enough circumstantial evidence in the Jeffrey Epstein case to allow us to say, oh, this man was a human trafficker and a serial pedophile. But
he was charged with that and found guilty in Florida.
Right, yeah. Right. But the same sort of media ecosystem doesn't have the same uniformity and doesn't have the same coordination in regards to presenting all of those things in regards to Epstein, but it does have that uniformity and coordination in regards to throwing this on to Russell Brand. Can we discuss on...
And also I would say to Andrew Tate, although Andrew Tate is a much less sympathetic character, and I'll admit that, it's much easier for me to give Russell Brand the benefit of the doubt than Andrew Tate. Although, you know, we have to be aware of how the sausage is made. So just because someone acts the top G on the internet and has engaged in some questionable business practices, you know, if he owned a webcam business and was basically, you know, a pimp for that, then, you know, that's hardly praise, but it's not illegal. And maybe he did. I mean, maybe he's guilty of everything he's being charged with in Romania. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. But if you compare these two to how Epstein and other figures where there's a lot more smoke there, and also actual charges and conviction in Florida, you know, it's basically suppressed.
Right. And to the fact that, you know, again, to our audience, there's these news, like the New York Times could have sent a litany of their reporters over a course of over 10 years to do an investigation on Epstein, and they didn't. But they
Express,
but these newspapers do it in regards to a comedian. Like,
and I have a theory about why that is that we'll get to it in a certain point. Well, it's not just my theory; it was also Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore's theory. So it's not something I came up with myself, but I think that there's something. It may help to, not that it explains it, but it could help to understand the zeal through which a lot of these mainstream media actors were quite happy to take him down a notch or take him out a bit.
I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear your theory on that.
So let's move on, and then so also in terms of how consent is manufactured. If you look at the pictures that went along with this barrage of coverage, often one like the one you see on it's on my left. So you see this kind of, you know, so this is a picture from maybe like 15 years ago. I don't even know, maybe even 20 years ago. I don't know. This picture was everywhere.
Diabolical,
yeah, and not the picture of him now, and he has a wife, 2 kids. Now he has a wife and 3 kids. Not that picture. No, this is the picture.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, he's a Christian now.
Yeah, I know that.
Well, not that Christians can do no wrong, but I'm like, they picked pictures when he was like before his sobriety.
Yeah, when he was young and wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and it's like, and it's kind of interesting. It's like, well, yeah, if you're trying to create if you're trying to manufacture consent, which picture would you use?
True.
I mean, would you use the one from now? Of the family that's being affected by this, or would you use the one of this guy who looks like you would want to get away from him as quickly as possible if he stumbled up to you in the bar like at 2 in the morning? Then you'd be like, no,
true.
I'm lonely, but I'm not that lonely, you know.
True. You know what he looks like in that picture on the left? He looks like do you remember that magician? What's that dude's Chris something? I forget what his name.
Oh, Chris. I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
He's all like, mind freak. Yeah, remember that TV show? It was like, mind freak. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. That's who he looks like.
So that's one thing. Another way that the consent is manufactured. And another one is language choice. And this isn't just with Brand. This has come out particularly since, I don't know when this started, but I noticed it a lot since the quote unquote Me Too moment. So making accusers holy, one way we do that, because you have the accuser and the accused. So there's someone who's making accusation and there's the person who's being accused. So these things, yeah, they have a connotation, but they're not so provocative. But instead of saying accuser, you call them victims or survivors. Now, it's understandable why people would want to do that. You want to be sympathetic. But what it does is it functions to manufacture consent that allegations are always already true and completely accurate. So they'll talk about, we talked to 4 of Russell Brand's victims, not 4 of Russell Brand's accusers, but victims, survivors. You see how that works?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and technically, of course, it's going to be public opinion. That's fine. Technically, it's the court, legally at least, that determines who has actually been a victim of a crime, not the media or your social media feed or your gut or whatever. So it's really and so it could be very well-meaning. You know, you got to be respectful. For so many years, so many sexual abuse and harassment claims weren't taken seriously. And so to kind of overcompensate, now we don't talk about someone being an accuser, but being a victim or a survivor before anything has been hashed out through any kind of process. So it's, but what that does is if I'm a victim, well, I'm a victim of something. Who am I a victim of? This person victimized me. So if I'm a Russell Brand victim, that's quite different than accuser. And you see this all the time. For certain people, not everybody, you know. So, but it's the kind of it's just something to watch, because if you associate with someone being somebody's victim or having survived an encounter with someone, that's different than someone accusing someone of something. You know, which could be that could be lying, that could be not lying, that could be. It could be an interpretation thing. It may not raise to the level that it needs to for various crimes and whatnot. But this happens quite a bit, and it's pernicious, especially if you're the one who's being accused. Yeah, and especially when it comes to reputational damage that can't be undone. Even if it comes out later that if something comes to nothing, so no charges happen, or maybe somebody recants or whatever, it's already out there. People will oftentimes associate it because they're not going to be, you know, once it's in there, it's hard to unlodge, and people aren't going to be going around like little investigators following up on every news splash. So on that, so and then okay, so in terms of why one of the reasons why the media would have been keen to promote a story that presents Russell Graham as some long, like, pathological sex pest for like the last 25 years or so. So I'm going to share my screen and show a video that happened March 3rd, 2023 on Real Time with Bill Maher. And this is, his name's Nyman, John Nyman. He's a MSNBC contributor. And he also has a show on HBO. I don't know if it's called The Circus, where he's like a meta commentary on the media, because he's, you know, no one's more critical of the media than MSNBC Nyman or Hyman. So let me see if I can get this, and let's see if it works. Oh no, cancel.
Oh, is that from the Mint Press News?
Well, they have a clip of it.
Yeah. No, I love the Mint Press. Yeah.
Share screen.
There's some good people.
Let's see if this works. Share. Okay, now let's see if the timing, if the volume works.
I love you already, but I have to say that it's disingenuous to claim that the biases that are exhibited on Fox News are any different from the biases exhibited on MSNBC. It's difficult to suggest that these corporations operate as anything other than mouthpieces for their affiliate owners in BlackRock and Vanguard. And unless we start to embrace, and also, mate, like, just spiritually, if I may use that word in your great country, we have to take responsibility for our own perspective perspective. I've been on that MSNBC, mate. It was propagandist nutcrackery on there. I went on a show called Morning Joe. It was absurd the way they carried on.
Good Morning Joe.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what it was. It wasn't me. I didn't understand the basic tenets of journalism. No one was willing to stick up for genuine American heroes like Edward Snowden. No one was willing to talk about Julian Assange and what he's suffered trying to bring real journalism to the American people. And I think to sit within the castle of MSNBC throwing rocks at Fox News is ludicrous. Make MSNBC better. Make MSNBC great again.
My friend, I would, the moment,
fight them on a territory you can win on, Joe.
Russell, darling, the moment that you give me a specific example, an actual example.
Okay, I'll give you one.
Just wait.
I thought you needed a specific example.
Let me tell you what the specific I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear a specific example, a provable specific example of an MSNBC correspondent or anchor being on television, saying something they knew was false, and we're saying behind the scenes to people, I'm about to go out, and we know that the election wasn't stolen or something equivalent. But I will go out on television and say the opposite. I will lie.
When's my answer?
Just give me the specific example.
I understand the basic point.
Give me a specific example.
All right.
I'm with you. I think it's a false equivalency, Russell.
It's not. That's your own bias.
It's not about bias. It's a false equivalency because you don't actually know anything about any of these organizations you're talking about. Even on MSNBC once, big fucking deal.
My darling, it was more than enough.
You can't come up with such a carry. You have a single actual fact.
Do you want an example? Yes. The ludicrous, outrageous criticisms of Joe Rogan around ivermectin, deliberately referring to it as a horse medicine when they know it's an effective medicine.
Yeah, that's not a bad
Rachel
example.
Maddow turning up on the TV saying, if you take this vaccine, you're not going to get it, when it hadn't been clinically trialed for transmission. You have to listen. Do you think you can improve America by determinedly and avowedly condemning Fox News without acknowledging that you're participating in the same game? Did you not just listen to Bernie Sanders, someone who plainly, legitimately believes in this country and believes it's possible to change, but is bound by corruption, is bound by the lobbying system? Surely it's clear to you, Bill, as one of the great pundits and experts and comic voices, that systemic change is required. Money has to be taken out of politics. We need new political systems that genuinely represent ordinary Americans so that we can overcome cultural differences. And bickering about which propagandist network is the worst is not going to save a single American life, not improve the life of a single American child, not going to improve America's standing in the world, and the world needs a strong America. I'll tell you that. So you have an obligation, a duty, not to condemn these people.
So did you hear that, Tony?
Yes, I did.
So that's, what do you think? You think that had something to do with it?
Yeah. Okay. So I think now it's time for us to get into that. But I'll let you delve into that first with regards to your theory, because I think now it's time to delve into that.
Well, no, I mean, he's been kind of eating the lunch of the mainstream media for a while. And he used to go on all these shows, and he was just kind of a funny guest. Yeah. Because, he has there's a reason why he was a regular guest on all these shows on each side of the Atlantic. And I don't know when it was when he started to get more political and started to kind of made this commentary and kind of, joking about the news and all this stuff. But so this was one thing with Heilman, and also, of course, Embassy and MSNBC in general. But he's also had it with, there's George Monboit. I can't remember. I don't know. Anyway, George M.O. and Boit, who's a regular Guardian contributor. He's kind of a PMC darling. And he has had it out for Russell Brand for a couple of years. Yeah, because he thinks he's a conspiracy theorist. That's one of these what happened to Russell Brand type of guys, because he dared to consider the point of view of farmers who weren't into some of these having to, change yet again what they were doing because of whatever climate change bill was going on in either in the UK or in the EU. That he doesn't condemn first. Let's just say that. So there was kind of people who are used to being the gatekeeper for the plebs, like, we're the ones you should be listening to, not this crazy comedian dude who doesn't know what he's talking about. So he had upset people at The Guardian, at the BBC, and also you could see with this display, because you can see that it's quite clear that the audience was on his side, and that kind of went viral afterwards. So now I'm not saying that after that there was some sort of meeting of all the journalists and or all the so-called journalists and pundits, like, hey, we need to teach the guy a lesson. But I think that when it comes to the fact that why there would be a particular vigor to take somebody out who they think people should not be listening to. So you shouldn't be listening to Russell Brand or Jimmy Dore or RBN or whoever, Joe Rogan, whatever it is, all the no, you should be listening to, we're the ones who know what the news is and know how it should be presented, so you should listen to us. And so you get these kind of smear things. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I just think if you're trying to look at like why, with all the things you could spend your investigate, since you don't have a lot of investigative reporting going on anyway at these places, it seems, especially compared to what you had before, if you're going to pick which person you're going to investigate, if you're going to dedicate 2 people for the bulk of their time to investigate this Russell Brand sex life, I'm thinking that there's probably, again, maybe a political reason to it. I mean, I don't know, but it just seemed a bit like, he was just pissing off the wrong people. And given the fact that he has had the lifestyle that he had, they figured they would, go out and find some skeletons. I don't know, but I think that it's just one factor into looking at how it, not so much the story itself, but how it happened, and how it was just like this avalanche that made it seem like there was all these different stories, when actually the source is this one investigation from these 2 journalists from the Times. So that's all I have to say about that. What do you have anything you want to add?
No, yeah, well, yeah, I wanted
about that or anything so far before we take a little break.
Well, no. I have plenty to add, but I wanted to hear what you were hinting at with Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald, their sort of angle or their theory of why he has been targeted.
It was the same. It was basically they were quite clear, which of course you have to be. It's like, look, we don't know if there's anything to these allegations or not. And they would say, like, if they would like, yeah, if this is true, they should go to the police. He should be tried. We'll see. But when they focused on how it happened, and again, the choices of why, so you choose to look at this guy for 4 years. Rather than all this other stuff, you compare it to the other cases. So if it was the case that we're really concerned about sexual assault, really concerned about women, and we know that the media hasn't done a very good job, so we want to make up for that, you're going to focus on Russell Brand rather than Epstein or somebody like that?
Right.
It's just like...
Right. Okay. So
I mean, and not just necessarily him, but all the other people who were involved in that, who showed up in the pictures, or on his airplane, or at his Lolita, Epstein Island or whatever of that, when there was actual, he'd been convicted before, and this was kind of an open secret, I guess. No, we're going to focus on Russell Brand for this time of time. It just seems a bit, again, I don't know, it's a speculation, but it certainly seems like it was a factor.
Yeah. So what I can add to that for our audience is, and this is very clear to me, is that we need to understand 2 things here. I think we need to come to terms with what I would call is the sort of state ideology and sort of accepted ways of behavior and being that the state transmits, and that in the 21st century and the latter half of the 20th century is through this prism of being a buttoned up cosmopolitan liberal. That is the sort of state ideology and acceptable sort of behavior for Western civilization as a totality. That's the sort of liberal bureaucracy. That's me as a sociologist one day doing research for the UN. Like that's the acceptable parameters for a Westerner in professional settings, in jobs, as you present yourself in media. You have to present yourself through the state ideology, which is liberal cosmopolitanism and stuff like that. So we need to understand that. Two, we also need to understand, and I don't think people on the left, I don't think conservatives and fascists, I don't think they understand it. Is this over the last half of the 20th century and then kickstarting into this century, obviously we're now in the first quarter of it, is that the sort of Western bureaucracy has become a new form of has become a new all-encompassing totalitarian structure. It's now Chris Hedges has hinted at this many times over the
Iron Cage. You going to go Weber on us?
Yes. Hey,
we don't want to get too egghead for people. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay, so but this ties into it because, and especially from like 2015 onwards, the presentation of personhood has to fit within this bureaucratic totalitarian.
There's certain rules of decorum, yeah.
Yeah, but it has
how you act and what your politics are and what you question. You have to. You're going to get some sort of flack if you mention the elephants in the room, and we all,
It's not even. It's not. Yeah, that's one part of it, and that's kind of like the part that Russell finds himself in, where he's called attention.
Ruffled the wrong feathers.
He's ruffled the wrong feathers, but also in his own personhood, the way he dresses, the sort of I'll go on to say the sort of art that he creates is, they don't want the quote unquote plebs, they don't want the masses to attain anymore a sense of personhood. They want the masses to all be essentially totally conformed, automatons. They want them to be STEM people, STEM.
Well, yeah, it's differences that aren't a difference. You can be different. You can be different all you want, as long as it's not a difference that matters.
Right, and that's the same thing. Now I'm not a fan of Andrew Tate. But even his own personhood of being his
persona,
being a I don't want to say it, but
top G.
No, because I don't accept the liberal, the liberal individual. But there's an irony that now liberalism has become a totalitarian system, that it does not even want its own quote unquote liberal individual. It doesn't even want that.
Yeah.
So that's the irony, like it doesn't even want, it doesn't, and that's what's so funny. And so it has to at all costs remove these different personas. It has to, because because the danger to this liberal bureaucracy and its totalitarian all-encompassing system, the danger to it is not through conservatism or nascent fascism. No, the true danger to it always remains. The true danger to it is a potentiality for a socialist revolution.
Oh dear.
Because that's the truth. That's what it has. That's why it cannot allow, because if you allow a persona of Russell Brand to exist, would it eventually lead
to a successful one?
Yeah, would it eventually lead to, in his audience that runs the gamut, because he's appealing now to, just like Jimmy Dore, they've now strategically have understood to sort of broaden their audiences beyond a sort of left audience to more like they've broadened it. But what the totalitarian system doesn't want is for those people, the masses that are now watching Jimmy, Russell, they don't want the masses now to sort of become conscious of their own personhood, because if the masses become conscious that they're an individual and they have personhood and they have personality and they have creativity, that's going to lead the masses to discovering Marx. You understand what I'm saying?
I was not expecting that tangent, but go ahead.
Because like you can watch Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore will give you, a left sort of dynamic, but it's the creativity and the personhood that you attain through watching Russell and Jimmy and Glenn and all these and Max, all these people. It's the personhood that will lead you on a journey to saying, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to start reading different things. Oh, you know what? I think I'm because that's what happened to me when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I had more mainline American Democratic Party politics. I had more like I was more. When I was like 13, I thought of myself as like a social democrat at the very least. But when the Great Recession happened, and when the Great Recession happened, and then discovering Chris Hedges and discovering Abby Martin and stuff like that, that made me be like, oh, you know what? Let me see what this Marx guy is about. And then that led me to reading about Marx. That led me to joining the socialist organization that was based out of San Francisco. That led me to and then eventually led me to now speaking to you. So so all these things, all of these things correlate in the terms of achieving consciousness and achieving personhood, but the system cannot allow that because it inevitably leads to socialism. Because again, the material conditions, once these people start to become aware of the material conditions on an individual level, then they become aware of it on a social level, and so they start congregating amongst each other. Right? And that builds these new social bonds. And so you get people that now are being like, oh, you know what? Let's try to organize along these socialist principles within our town, our community, our neighborhood, our city council. They can't have that because then it'll spread like wildfire.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is super interesting. I wasn't expecting that kind of carrying it out, this kind of thought experiment going, which is fantastic. And of course, I'm guessing that most of our
Jimmy Dore said it. Well, Jimmy Dore said it himself in that when he said that he said this himself. He's all like, yeah, a MAGA guy came to my show and a socialist was at my show. They were speaking. That he's talking about what I'm talking about.
No. One thing I don't disagree with you. What I'm saying is that again, a lot of times when people hear socialism, they'll think Stalin, Mao, and then a particular version of that, and they think, okay, the government owns everything and controls everything. So for some people, if you say socialism as the alternative or the way out of totalitarianism, that's going to be a shocking thing for them to hear, and we can't really get into that now. So we'll put a pin in that in terms of like discussing what you meant by those terms. But I totally agree with you that we'll just call it culture war, for lack of a better term, totally suits the powers that be. Totally, it doesn't because it leaves the game. So the political economy, like untouched. So we're busy arguing about, and not that these things aren't important, but the economic and the financial and political establishment and ways of doing things aren't affected at all by these types of battles and blood sport. Actually, they can monetize it and or virtue signal off of it. They can put on the BLM tag or the pride flag or the Ukraine flag, or probably not the Palestinian one, but maybe that'll change once most people realize come to realize what's actually been going to not realize, but accept what's been going on over there. So yeah, it doesn't affect it's tension, it's drama, it's identity politics that doesn't shift regular everyday life in terms of in terms of decent work and decent living standards, and also having time, like you said, to do stuff that's not just about making enough money to pay for the things that we need to pay for, and maybe vegging out on or not vegging out, but maybe like escaping with our games or our devices or whatever for a day, and before we go back to the grind again, or go back to the grind of not having a grind, because it's worse not having a job than having one and needing one and not having one. So I totally agree with you there. And you took us into the kind of more philosophical, humanistic, species being type of Marxism, rather than the 2 chapters on how commodities are made, which is that's not important. But I think it's just we have to realize that what people bring to those terms. But I totally am with you, and we'll have to talk about that more.
Yeah, we'll definitely do another episode on that, because we have to address, and I think this is the elephant in the room for people like us, is we need to finally confront the nature of being a human being born into this type of system, and to understand that once you're born, you're born in the United States, you're born in the United Kingdom, you're born in France, you're born in Spain, you're born in Germany, you're born within Western this era of Western civilization. We need to understand.
I don't even know if it's just Western anymore, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. Like, so you're born into this framework of this total hegemonic totalitarian system, where now there isn't remotely
there's no alternative.
Well, yes, but there's no remotely a path to personhood anymore. Now, I'm going to say this briefly. Like, I came to this to understand this part of it this past semester, because a lot of those Gen Z kids have no personhood whatsoever. They are.
Can you tell me what you mean by that? Because there's subjectivity, there's personhood, there's individuality. What exactly do you mean by personhood?
You
could say a bit more about that.
Okay, so let's look at these Gen Z kids, because remember how I don't know if I told you this. Remember how I told you I got into it with those women? Did I tell you?
Yeah. You're gonna get us in trouble. Did I tell you about those women?
But basically, they were. So I had deleted Twitter off my phone, so I wasn't in the loop. But they were all like, they would rather be with a bear, I guess, attacked by a bear than.
Oh yeah, bear man. Yeah. There was that meme that would you rather be with the bear in the woods? Would you rather meet a bear in the woods or a man in the woods? I think that was the
So
the conceit.
So me sitting there, I couldn't hold my tongue back anymore. So I was like, what do you mean by that? And so they're trying to explain what they mean, but it's all funneled through this filter of what we just discussed, the sort of liberal NGO speak, the sort of cosmopolitan, like the whole what.
Well, they want to make everything risk-free, I think.
No, it has not. No.
Okay, sorry.
Again, okay, it's like fuck. It's like it's because I don't want to say it, but I have to say it because I don't want to sound egg-headed. So I'm just going to say this for our audience to understand this. The audience will understand this.
But set the stage. You're at university, yeah. This was in university context, yeah.
Yes, but it's like, okay, for our audience to understand this, think about the Matrix movies. You're talking to somebody within the Matrix who only can speak Matrix to you.
Okay.
You understand? That's what I mean by Gen Z has no sense of personhood.
Good analogy. That helps.
Right. So this is what we have to understand. Because no one understands this. Not David Harvey, not Slavoj Žižek, not Chris Hedges, not Vijay Prashad. None of the big academics, none of them talk about this. Not fucking Richard Wolff and his wife. None of them. Like,
okay, well, this is your lane then, Tony.
Yeah. None of them.
Okay, well, tell again. The bear thing.
We have to understand. We have to understand that the last two generations of human beings within the West have been so enculturated within this hegemonic totalitarian bureaucracy that they no longer have. They're born without. They're born into a setting.
Programmed.
Yeah, they're born into a setting where no sense of personhood is ever achieved, because the system at this point in its time period has mastered everything. So I was born in 1992. I was lucky to have grandparents who were part of the counterculture, the original counterculture in the 60s, which was, that experienced it and wasn't co-opted. My parents are Gen X, they came of age in the, when you Gen Xers came of age.
Are you outing me as a Gen X? It's true. I'm Gen X to the bone, baby, to the bone. Good.
So there wasn't, like during post 60s, like post the 60s into the first 30 years after the 60s, after the counterculture generation, the system was trying to recalibrate itself in order to clamp down on personhood and expression that could have potentially led to eventually a revolution. It was recalibrating itself. It was trying to recalibrate itself, and it started to understand how to recalibrate itself through social aesthetics of musicians, sexuality, and then what becomes Judith Butler, who's a product of this calibration of this hegemonic totalitarian system. So by the time I'm 18 years old in 2010, the system has now adapted in such a great way where that now for my generation that I achieved personhood, because it wasn't the clamps weren't as tight, but what I saw when I came of age in 2018 was that I started to see that if I wanted to join alternative culture, it was starting to become funneled and commercialized to what I'm describing here. If I wanted to be with my best friend who was into hip hop and that kind of stuff, that was becoming aggressively. I remember with my best friend, I went with him because he was a sneakerhead. He wanted to go purchase some sneakers or whatever, right? And I remember standing in the line, and I was looking at all these people. Now I'm a person of color within the context of the United States. My parents grew up on I grew up on hip hop, so I'm part of that culture, right? So, but when I was in the line, right? And I was looking at all these different types of people, and I'm like, wait a second, none of these people are part of my urban culture. When I was a baby, my parents were making me do the Running Man because that was part of our culture. You know what I mean? So none of these, and it wasn't racial or anything. It was more so what I'm getting at. None of these people were part of that. None of those people grew up with hip hop music. None of them. It was just it was that, like what I'm describing. But by the time the Gen Z kids came of age, everything, any sort of outlet was now tightened and uniform and conformed, and so they came of age where now everything everything is now manufactured for them. Everything is now, those women in that classroom, now they have literature and all this stuff that will give them a sense of how to speak. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, that's what we have to analyze, is like how total the I know I'm
indoctrination or consent manufacturer, sheepdom. I don't know. Cog in the machine.
Yes,
Matrix. I think Matrix is a good analogy.
Because
it's like, and it's also because the red pill. Is it red pill, blue pill, red pill, green pill, red pill, blue pill?
Yeah, red pill.
It's the idea that a lot of us know, we're fairly aware that there's some sort of Matrix-like thing going on there, but we really don't want to risk. Life on the outside.
Yeah, and okay, I'll give another example, right?
But Tony, you never told us what they said about the bear. Why would the women rather meet a wild bear in the woods than a man?
Okay, so again, so remember to our audience, these women don't have a sense of personhood. They're speaking in matrix speak. They're speaking in NGO
So
speak.
they're saying what they should. You think
There's
they're performing. To speak of Butler, they're performing.
yes,
They're performing their young
Performing-
urban
yes,
PMC enlightened
yes.
gender.
So what their response is,
Their
to-
political gender.
yes. Their response is to start
Oh
saying.
God. Go
Their
ahead.
response is to start saying, well, men are this, men are that, men rape, men cause violence on all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I understand that, yes, this is exactly what I said. I was like, yeah, I understand that reactionary violence does exist, but with all due respect, beyond culture and language, what is your solutions to let's just say reaction? I was like, what was your solutions? What would be your solution to solving reactionary violence? And when I said that, they just kept regurgitating that sort of liberal NGO, and I was like, and then that's when I was all like, I was like, hey, look, I've been a feminist, I've been a socialist, so if we're going to actually address male reactionary violence, why don't we?
Why are you saying it's reactionary rather than sexual?
Well, because it stems
or
from
men's violence against women. I mean,
because,
you're saying reactionary. Why is that?
Because the violence that in that context of what I was speaking to with those women and what they were telling me is derived from property relations. Do you understand? That's why it's reactionary, because the woman and the child are seen by the man as belonging to this overall.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a specific. That's a subtype, I would say. But yeah,
right. But that's the root. That's the root. But that is the root. If we're going to speak as socialists,
you can make that theory. Yeah, for sure.
But yes, but that's as somebody who has read feminism and has been a socialist and has had feminist girlfriends, that is, in my opinion, the root of this sort of reactionary male violence is the sense of, this goes back to property, and this goes back to historically within during this mode of production when it was slavery and all that kind of stuff. But when I pointed that out to them, it did not compute whatsoever, and that's when it got very heated. And they were like, what are you saying? And I was like, well, I'm saying this. I was like, what are your material solutions to this problem that you're telling me exists? And they wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what you're getting at. I'm just saying it a bit differently. Is I can imagine, and I've had some similar situations. Like, okay, but what's the limit of changing how we speak? So you can say we want to have more representation. Yeah. So you want to have, let's say, parity. So you want to have we'll just use since we're talking about Russell Brand, we'll use the entertainment business as an example, even though he's shifted into media, which is of course a type of that's not entertainment. So okay, well, and this we'll use the United States. So okay, well, 20% of the population? I think it's 17% is African American, yeah. And then there's certain much that's Latino, and then they lump it together as Asian, which is problematic because, of course, Asia is huge, but whatever. And say, okay, we should have that parity in there. So if we have that, then we're good. And the way we talk, we make sure that we don't talk in a way that causes anybody any problems, which also means that you cannot really say very much or break the ice. Then that'll be enough. And so the question would be, okay, well, what's the limit to that? Because if you're saying with the bear, like if you're saying, well, I'd rather if someone's saying, these women are saying, well, yeah, if I had to choose between meeting a random bear in the woods and a random man, I would opt for the bear because men are X, Y, and Z. Okay. Well, and what you're saying is like, okay, well, what do you do about that then? Besides making these memes and, making and kind of placing original sin and there go responsibility onto men, which is a bit not empowering.
Ridiculous.
Because I hate to tell people this, there would be no patriarchy without the participation of women. There would not be. But that's a story for another time.
Interesting. And it got heated, but it got heated from their end. I kept my composure. was that they.
I think you would be good at keeping your composure. I don't know if I am. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I am up to a degree, but it didn't,
Oh,
but but they really, so when it got heated because they now this is another facet I want our audience to really take heed of, that they really believed in that stuff. Like they believed that men, and this is why I asked them, and I think this
all
is
the men are out to get them.
yes, and this is I think also why it did get heated, because I
Mm-hmm.
point blank looked them in the eye and didn't hesitate, and I was like, why do you want to separate man and woman? Because
Mhm.
because they believed it so thoroughly that was their implication. Their implication
Mm-hmm.
was like, and that we would have to do another episode, because that also ties into, in my opinion, what I've seen from this totalitarian liberal bureaucracy, is that because it has removed the man from all facets of the social
Yeah.
fabric, is
Well,
like
that's a
it's
powerful statement that we have to. Again, we have
well,
to. Yeah. No. I don't want, and I don't want not to talk about it, Tony.
yeah,
It's
but
just that.
my point
Go
is,
ahead, sorry.
but my point is, and I think this
Mhm.
is also what Russell Brand, this is also why he's being
Mhm.
crucified, is because they've essentially, okay, let's just say from a superstructural perspective, right, from
Mhm.
ideology and all this stuff, that they've essentially have criminalized being a man. Like they've essentially have criminalized it.
Well, they've made it into some sort of pathology. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
toxic masculinity, the whole
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Right. And so when I said
And so the
that,
opposite. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. And so
Sorry.
when I asked the sort of ringleader, who was I'm not going to cuss, but it was this. She was like what she, for our audience, she was what I told my friends, I was all like, this woman wants to check every box, because she kept throughout the duration of the class of the semester, she would always bring up mental health, grooming, LGBT. Like she wanted to check every of those boxes, and
Every
then like
matrix of oppression.
yeah, and then I remember she asked me, like she had asked me once, I was trying to have an intellectual conversation with her, but then I stopped because I realized that she had no sense of personhood and she was an idiot. She had asked me
Bless.
she had asked me if I believed in aliens, and I'm like, huh? Like, but she meant it. She meant it. So it was like, so it was so but yeah, but they, these people believe.
Mm.
They believe in what's given to them in regards to this stuff. Like they actually like they strongly believe it,
Mm.
and that speaks to many different other things, because I'm not as, now I may seem like I'm in the loop, but I'm not in the loop to that point where uh where because I, like, from my perspective, it's so abnormal, it's so out of the norm for me to ever consider a separation of the sexes, that I can't even like my mind can't ever come my mind can't compute the experience of life as a separation of sexes linguistically to that degree. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the linguistic and cultural separation. Yeah, that's
Like it's so
yeah. And again, and Tony, I just want to stop you, not because this isn't
yeah,
fascinating, because we're getting quite far off field.
yeah.
So we have lots of morbid symptoms podcasts in the future. We can delve into these things with the time and the attention that they deserve. But yeah, I think this kind of interesting thing that you have an incel type of culture, an incel edgelord thing, but what is the opposite on the female side would be interesting to look at. And it also seems like this is a regurgitation. Like first is I don't know, I don't want to say tragedy that is farce, but was it Dworkin or who was, there was some radical feminist in the 70s, basically was, I know it was gynecology, but it was basically, and it was theory, but also kind of a thought experiment about literally women living with women, and men or some are, this was thought about the idea that, thinking about that type of thing is a possible solution, is having not just, women only spaces when it comes to, bathrooms and changing rooms and that, but like women only, enclaves, or I guess we'd have to have half of that, since we'd have the kids as well, or But there was also some feminist idea about I don't know if it was Dworkin, it was somebody else. I'm losing I can't remember all the names now at the moment. But there was also something that until women are liberated from having to have the children, that's going to be a problem. But of course, if a woman is liberated from having children, she's really not really, I mean, bodily at least, it's kind of an odd thing. Like, what if the sexes are, if we separate sexual, if we're able to technologically separate the reproduction of the species from sexual reproduction, that to me is crazy dystopian. But we've got it's amazing to me that at our break point, before we listen to Jeff tell us about how we're rape apologists for the segment we just had about Russell Brand and whatnot, we're going to take about a 5-minute break or 10-minute break so we can gather our thoughts and whatnot. But that was an interesting tangent, and it's clearly that it brought up some interesting issues. So it's interesting. You never know where things are going to end up. So we start with allegation industry and trial by media, focusing primarily on Russell Brand, and we end up with which I think it. And I want to commend you for that. I want to thank you for bringing that up, getting at a kind of a deeper level when it comes to sex relations and male-female relations that are also kind of lurking around these types of issues, especially the panics that are unleashed when it comes to figures like Andrew Tate and whatnot. I don't know if it was like this, and I'll just say this before we take a break and come back to look at Jeff's podcast, his Substack that had a very different take on the Brand event. We'll call it an event, the Russell Brand event. But it's that my son actually in the UK, they were so freaked out about Andrew Tate and this what Andrew Tate was doing to the young men. They had a couple school assemblies, basically, where you have these middle-aged people, often women or men, telling the teenagers why they shouldn't be watching Andrew Tate. Like, it's like you could not have gotten them to want to watch that dude more than doing that.
True.
I mean, I was like, whose brain fart was this? No, you shouldn't. It's misogynist and sexist, and that's not how you don't want it. That's that. I can only imagine that. I'm like, my God. But anyway, so this kind of moral panic. They were so freaked out that he was going to turn everybody into some sort of, I don't know, top G hustler. I don't know. Part-time pimp, full-time. I don't know what he is. I don't know. Again, I don't know where he gets his money besides from his super chats. I don't know if all those cars are his or he just like rents them for the day. I don't know. But the moral panic over this man was crazy. And the same thing happened with Russell Brand because of one of the women. She was technically legal, or I think she was 16 or 17, that he had relations with when he was in LA. And in LA, that was the age of consent. And her parents actually knew what was going on. But people, of course, and yeah, there is something. Yeah, if you hear about a 30-some-year-old, whatever, 31, whatever he was, with the 16-year-old, you're like, okay, dude. But there was like this panic of we have to protect our daughters. We have to protect our daughters from these predators. And we have to, the age of consent has to be increased. I'm like, really? If you change the age of consent from 16 to 18, what is that going to do? How is that going to prevent any of this from happening? You're just going to have more. It was just, but this moral panic that just kind of peaked. And then maybe it would have went somewhere more if it hadn't been for Palestine, Israel kicking off in such a gruesome way. Well, in terms of, October 7th and onwards. But it was just this moral panic. And that's why, and I remember having a couple of conversations when, Andrew Tate would come up. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm familiar. My son and his friends listen to him. You let your son listen to Andrew Tate? I'm like, I don't make him. I mean, we have a conversation about it. He brings up his Tateisms, and then I get to have my say try to get actually what he thinks. But no, I don't ban it because that would just, what would that do? And if you want to tell me I'm a terrible mother, well, whatever. I'm lots of things. I've been called a transphobe, a Nazi, a racist, an anti-Semite, rape apologist, terrible mother. Bring it on, bitch. I don't care. Anyway, on that note, gosh, it's been 2 hours and 24 minutes. How are you time-wise, dear? Good?
Yeah, you want to just finish up with his article and
Well, no, what I want to do is I want to take like 5-minute break and then come back and get into let's why Jeff would consider what we just did here in my article as a piece of rape apology. And we'll see if we'll get my feedback on what I think about his take on things, and also your feedback to my feedback and his feedback, and then we'll wrap up. But let's take about a 5-minute break or so and then come back.
yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so Morbid Symptoms podcast. Tony and I got in a bit of we forgot that you guys were out there. Well, but always in our heart. We love our small but mighty audience. Okay. The first part we talked about, again, allegation industry, trial by media, manufacturing of consent with special picture, using the Russell Brand event as an example. And I went through, we went through my the article I wrote about that, my Substack about it in September. And then we got off into broader issues about sexual relations and is it millennials or Zoomers? What are they now? What's the generation now?
The generation now is the Gen Z.
Oh, Gen Zs, yeah. And what's going on with how it seems how there seems to be a pronounced separation growing between men and women, and not just like in physical proximity, but in terms of concepts and language and discourse and this type of thing that Tony was touching upon, which is interesting. But we have to put a pin in that because that's a lot to unpack, and we'll have to think about that more and how we can present it in a way that's accessible to people who haven't been, and also to me who haven't been thinking about it in those ways. So we're going to take 5-10 minutes at the most break, and we're going to come back and hear why my Substack article was leftist rape apology, and and why I adamantly disagree and think that's a bunch of bullshit. So stay tuned, people. We'll be back in 5-8 minutes.
Shit, am I still on there? How do you
Hey, Tony, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this, baby. Let me turn off the music. Well, because of copyright stuff, we need to use the music that's included, or else we'll get in trouble, even though we're a small operation here. Let me turn off our banner. Oh, goodness. Okay, so hide. All right. But before, just because I'm in a mood, I want to be a really bad I want to be a really bad woman and share an Andrew Tate tweet. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay with that? Can you
Yes, yes.
handle seeing an Andrew Tate tweet? I don't want to trigger you. So let's see. Just FYI, people, an Andrew Tate tweet is going to be on the screen. So do look away if that is upsetting, because I realize he can be an upsetting figure. So let me see if I can share my screen here. Share screen. Yes, so many things going on here. My computer is screaming. Okay, so we can let's see. Go away. So he tweeted after the Trump thing. Wow, the rigged trial. They rigged a trial in the USA. Thank God my trial's in Romania. And I know I'm not supposed to laugh because he's the devil. He is the, and he could be. I don't know. Maybe he's guilty of everything he's been charged with. And if he is, I hope that he's tried and convicted. But I thought this was a fairly funny tweet. Any comments?
No, I have no comments.
No?
The guy is hilarious, that's for sure. His image is so ubiquitous now in my mind.
What now?
His image, it's so ubiquitous.
Sorry. I mean, if I had known the shitstorm that was going to happen, well, because I dared to share this, put a tweet of his in the group chat. My God. Anyway, and the reason why he's not irrelevant to this is because that's how this whole podcast came to be, actually, because it made me think of my Russell Brand article on this whole topic. And then, of course, the Trump verdict was released today. So let's see. Let me get out of here. Let me get rid of all the bells and whistles here. Okay. So if I may, I'm going to ask you to do some of the reading of my response. I'm going to give some background to why we're having a segment centered around Jeff Melton's article on leftist rape apologists chime in about Russell Brand. And I guess he's talking to me and to you, rape apologist. Noted. I mean, I've talked to Tony several times about his rape apologies, and he keeps on apologizing for rapists. Let's see, comments. Sorry, I'm forgetting what I'm doing now. Oh, Brand. Just talk amongst yourselves while I figure out what I'm doing. Here we go. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I sinned, and I put a tweet in the group chat on X that was from Andrew Tate, and it was a political, I thought it was funny. And I even prefaced it like, I know he's the devil, but I like this tweet, and this precipitated this whole thing. And so this exchange made me think it was just like what was going on when the Brand thing was going on, trying to have a conversation with people, not about whether or not this particular person's guilty or not, or about how credible the accusations are, but just about, again, the thing we were talking about, the media part of it, the manufacturing consent part of it, the allegation industry part of it, and it was just like, It was the same type of thing. You're, a bad feminist, and you are apologizing for rapists and defending rapists, get off your knees, all this kind of crazy stuff. So it made me think of the Brand article, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna retweet that out. And I caveated it with, like, has there been any formal allegations registered? Has there been any charges filed? Is there a court case? And as far as I know, no on all of those. And then with the thing, like, maybe we need to look at this cultural trend of weaponizing sexual assault and misconduct for political and economic purposes. And Jeff apparently saw that on my Twitter feed and linked and pasted it into the group chat as a pretense, I'm assuming, to share his take on it. Mm-hmm. And so that's why. And since we had already decided to do a show on this topic, I thought, okay, well, this is, thanks for the free content. So, Another bad feminist and I, she read his Substack, and she gave me some of the points that she would have raised by it. And then I read it twice today, which was 2 times too many. But I needed to read it because if I wanted to make, called out, shots fired, I have to respond in some fashion. So I read it, and I came up with like 6 or 7 responses to his article. And we're not going to read out his article again. If you want, the information's there. You can go and find it on his Substack and decide for yourself if I'm being straw manny or whatever you want to challenge me with. But the way I worded my response, you can tell the argument that he's making. Yeah. So I, on purpose, put the first sentence so that the people could tell what his argument was, and then why I think it's bullshit or dangerous or just not well thought out, let's say. So since I've been talking a lot, would you mind doing these, Tony?
You mean reading them?
Yeah.
Okay. Jeff's article appears more as an activist stance than a realistic, informed perspective. It suggests people should be put on trial based on any assertions, without considering the consequences of such an approach. Jeff did not witness any of the alleged incidents, nor hear evidence presented at a trial. This critical detail undermines the authority of his assertions. Relying on secondhand information, especially for serious allegations, weakens the credibility of his arguments.
Yeah, so the first part is that the idea that, because again, there's this thing that there's this bar of evidence. Yeah. So if someone makes an allegation, the police have to decide if there's enough there to charge the person. And then of course, after there's a charge, there's also a period of collecting up more information and presenting it to the prosecutor, is how I understand it. And the prosecutor has to decide, okay, are we going to go to trial with this or not? And he's suggesting that that's too much. Any assertion should be like put on some sort of trial. And what do you think about that? If you kind of thought experiment that out, what do you think that would entail?
Wait, say that last word again. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll do it. So I shouldn't have sprung this on you, but the idea that is this that. Because right now there's certain levels, there's certain levels that allegations and certain levels of evidence that have to be there before charges are filed and before a case is brought. Yes. Yeah. And he's saying that's bad. There shouldn't be, if an allegation is made, then it should be investigated and there should be some sort of trial of some sort.
Well, you need evidence before you. Now, an allegation is just an allegation. It's a statement. Yeah. It's allegations are made by alleged victims against a perpetrator, but the alleged victim has to, in my opinion, has to have already been through the process within the courts, within the legal system. Have allegations be in the sort of public forum be sort of accepted as, okay, these allegations actually belong to now we see like these
if they're credible enough, which doesn't mean the person's lying necessarily. It means that if they can't prove it, you have to be able to prove something.
True, you have to be able to prove
Yeah.
something. Allegations, allegations divorced from our legal processes don't really do anyone anything, because I could say that Tara is a cat burglar, but unless I have some proof, me talking shit, so I don't like.
No, and if you think about this, it's like even the system we have now is overburdened. Yeah.
Right.
And if we just take sex crimes and running from harassment all the way through aggravated, well, I guess through rape. There's already like a small percentage that actually make it to trial. And if you were going to open up the floodgates, how are you even going to do that? And also, there's the burden is on the state to prove their case, not on the person being accused to prove they're innocent.
Exactly. And
that is important. If you think about it for more than a moment, and you're not trying to virtue signal or try to get the best male feminist award, if you think about this for a moment, it's just like, seriously, dude. But anyway, that's my thought. I could be, and again, I'm prickly, so go ahead.
No, and I'm going to second that, and then I'm also going to ask this: is there an ongoing case? Is this case now in the process within the courts, or is there?
He's talking about in general.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying. So is there?
No.
Oh, then what the fuck is he saying? So if there's no.
He was talking, but he's using what's happened to Brand to make a more broader argument.
Right. I read his article, and I read his article, and from what I get from his article is that allegations against this individual in question are enough to essentially, at the very least, put him in some sort of cultural timeout where he's no longer going to receive...
canceled.
Yes. So at the very least, he's canceled in this man's I guess, in what he
just has to go away until this is,
until these allegations are either verified to be fraudulent or verified to be, factual, but they can only be verified to be factual in a court of law. And if there's no DA, nobody's brought charges against this man. He's
how long is he supposed to wait?
Yeah,
and I don't even know. I mean, he might have been able to figure out who the women are, but they've been as far their anonymity, at least publicly, has been maintained. So how would he actually go about proving himself? I mean, this is the thing, and again, the class component, because he thinks he's a socialist. It's one thing for if someone has a nest egg, but what about a guy who doesn't have that much money? He's just supposed to what? Like what?
He's just gonna fucking stay in limbo, sit in limbo jail cell, I guess, at that point. Okay,
so and the second part, do you want to say anything about the second part before I it's kind of self-explanatory, I think. That's just to keep in mind.
It's self-explanatory. Relying on secondhand information, especially for serious allegations, weakens the credibility of his arguments, which is the truth. I mean,
he doesn't know what happened.
Exactly. You're going on.
He does not know. I don't know. You don't know. He does not know. And making it, but he's so
ironclad
that not only does he know, but that he can make these proclamations that basically undermine common law, basic jurisprudence, But he thinks that's a fault. He thinks that's a canard, though. So let's.
Even if I was to sort of engage with him on the level that he wants to be engaged at, if Russell Brand was a serial rapist or a serial predator, then that behavior would extend over decades. It would extend consistently. Just as
not necessarily, but there'd be something. Again,
there's definitely a pattern. I mean, like look at Epstein, look at Jimmy Savile.
Well, Yeah,
Right?
we're not. I mean, I don't know. I don't
just
know
saying, but I'm just
yeah.
saying if he was,
Mhm.
there
If it was
sure as hell,
pathological, then yeah.
yeah, if he was, there sure as hell would be more than 4 women, and two, there'd be more. It would be over fucking decades. It would be decades of it. You know what I mean? Like this man has now been famous since like the mid 2000s. So it's like, bro's been famous for like 20 years. So he would have 2
Yeah,
decades of
yeah, and I don't
potential.
know, and it could be the fact that because again, most women don't want to aren't keen to make allegations like this public for a variety of reasons, because it's it's not it's because
Yeah,
at a certain when it's just in the media, when it's just the media and they're being asked and they're being asked they're being treated very sympathetically, and it's all about wanting to get their story out and get their voice out, and that's well and good. But when it goes to court, then it's a whole different bar game. Their whole life becomes in term a certain part becomes germane, which is one of the reasons why I'm sure that that precludes people from doing it. But it's like, that somehow it's just this thing, the balance, shifting the balance. You could make the argument that the system was too skewed on the favor of the accused rather than the accuser. But if you flip it too much the other way, you have a whole situation of other problems, and not better problems. I would argue. But anyway, let's see what else he has to tell us, rape apologists. Okay. Is this the next one? Okay, so go ahead and do your best narration, Tony, please.
Jeff argues that innocent until proven guilty is a popular bastardization. This is incorrect. The principle of presumption of innocence is a cornerstone of common law, ensuring that the burden of proof lies with the accuser. It protects innocent people from defending against unfounded allegations. Dismissing this standard invites unjust persecution. Boom, done. I mean, that to me is, you explained. I mean, that's it. Like, I mean, like he can't come back. Like he can't say like.
Oh,
You're
I'm
right.
sure he could, but it's just the thing is that.
No, I mean,
Go ahead.
no, you're absolutely right. I mean,
Well, he's talking out of his ass, is what he's doing. On this point,
yeah. Let me read this again because it's so okay. So
be dramatic, Tony. Be dramatic.
Yeah.
I worked hard on this paragraph.
Yeah. Jeff argues.
Couple minutes.
Yeah. Jeff argues. So Jeff argues that innocence until proven guilty is a popular bastardization. This is incorrect. The principle of presumption of innocence is a cornerstone of common law, ensuring that the burden of proof lies with the accuser. It protects innocent people from defending against unfounded allegations. Dismissing this standard invites unjust persecution. And yeah, that's the truth. This isn't the fucking Salem witch trials where everybody can accuse you of being a witch. You know what I mean? I mean, like, this is
a rapist, yeah.
Yeah, we do have this is my problem with this moment within as Western civilization starts to fracture, and because of this stage of capitalism where we can no longer where we lose our standards of where we do have universal standards of coherence, and they become incoherent because of where we're at in this sort of late stage capitalism as everything breaks down. That's the danger, is like dude, no, we have standards here that I don't care what the fuck may be going on the outside. These standards still exist, and we need to still abide by them, because
it could be a construct. Yeah,
because I don't want, because I'm coded as a man. What if because now I didn't tell you this part. So after that little tiff in the class,
with the bear versus man in the woods.
Yeah, after that little tiff in the classroom, so everything was very awkward for the next 40 minutes, and then I just got up and I left. But a week later, the professor sent me a private message, basically telling me that some of the stuff I was saying was inappropriate, and then I had sent it to the one, let's just say, the woman that was part of the staff who I was having a relationship with. I had sent her a screenshot of it, and she was all like, that bitch is, oh, excuse me. She was like, that lady is, she was like, that lady's trying to cover up her tracks. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But I put when I responded to that professor, I was like, I'm not sure what you're getting at, and I don't agree with what you're getting at, because what you're saying didn't occur. But if you're talking about that incident that happened with all of us talking, then you need to address it as it is. So, but tying that into this is that I don't want these kind of people to throw shit like that on me, which almost did happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, almost did. Like, I almost was canceled. You know what I mean? Like, I almost, you know what I mean? Because what if that lady would have misconstrued? What if that professor would have misconstrued what happened as
a microaggression or a medium aggression?
Exactly.
Yeah,
where
you challenged a female student's argument in class,
exactly,
while being male, and that's
right. Yeah. So
I mean, I wasn't there, but it seems like that was kind of the gist.
Yeah, and I mean, I have the receipts,
mansplaining.
so,
you mansplainer.
I have the receipts, so I'm pretty much protected in that way, because I do have the screenshots. In case anything ever does come up again in regards to that. But that lady, so I confronted her in regards to if that was what she was getting at, but then she hits me back up and says, "Oh no, I'm talking about this private conversation that her and I and this other classmate of mine had an hour after the class, when we were all just sitting together, shooting the shit, talking on a human friendship level." She brought that, yeah. So it was weird that she brought that up, but she's like, "Oh, I felt like some of the stuff that you said there in our private conversation an hour after class," she was like, "some of the stuff that you said was inappropriate." And I'm all like, and I told her, I didn't back down. I was all like, well, it was after class. It was me, you, and the classmate on. We were all talking on a personal level,
just chatting,
yeah. And then 3, I told her, I was like, if you had an issue with what I was saying, then I want you to keep that same energy with the classmate who was talking about their LGBT stuff. Because so what she said that she had a problem with was when I was talking about my, some of my personal relationships. Like, I was talking about, like, oh yeah, I've been seeing this woman and that woman.
Was it a TMI type of thing? Or?
Yeah, but it wasn't. But it was. But we were all. Here's the thing, though. It was an hour after class, and we were all talking on that level. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, you guys are all adults.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, but this lady. But that's why the woman who I was having an affair with, when I sent her the screenshots, she was all like, "Oh, that bitch is trying to cover up her tracks."
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, yeah.
No, but going back to this, this is like, I don't want just because I'm a heterosexual man to be allegations thrown on me when everybody knows who I am. Everybody knows my character. Everybody knows I'm a stand-up guy. I don't want random people saying, "Oh, well, he said something and then now it becomes this." Do you understand what I'm saying? So this,
yeah.
So what Jeff doesn't understand is this allegation culture does have real world consequences on whomever you throw allegations on, because like Russell, now in this context, Russell Brand has a wife, he has kids, he has a livelihood. So you want to destroy this man's livelihood? Like, how is he going to take care of his kids? You understand what I'm saying? Like these things have consequences. So it's like, are you aware of that?
Well, no, and his wife was pregnant when all this shit was going down.
True. Do you want his wife?
Nobody cares about that. That's
exactly.
That's also the thing about who we give sympathy to and who we don't give sympathy to is also, I forgot to mention that, but it's in the article. That when just as an aside, I think it was a little while before Russell Brand, there's a couple of gay male broadcasters who some allegations of sexual misconduct, or maybe like I don't know, having like, or I don't know if it was if it was like criminal misconduct, or ideas like they would be let's just say extra friendly with the young male staff or interns, and this had come out, and there was a lot of press on it, and their colleagues were saying that they had checked in with so and so just to see how he was doing and how his family was doing during this, this really difficult time. And okay, so this person was also being accused of something, but not at the scale and scope of Russell Brand. And he's recovering addict. He has 2 kids, another kid on the way, a wife. No one gave a fuck about them. And if anyone would have brought that up on these outlets, I'm sure it would have been like, are you putting whatever it is. So it was just really interesting. But also in terms of, the burden of proof lies with the accuser. Now in criminal law, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, it's always the state that brings the case. Now on the behalf of somebody, so it's the state versus so-and-so, if it's a criminal investigation. So even if it was a criminal court, and let's say one of his accusers filed charges, the police decide there was enough to or filed the complaint, the police did a charge, it goes to court. It's the state is the one that has the power to convict someone and take away their personal freedom. Yeah. Now it's on the behalf. They have evidence, which is the accusers and all the other stuff. Now in civil court, it's not. So it's still the court system of the state, of the government, of the state, of the country that you're in. But then it's an individual versus another individual, or an individual versus a corporation or a corporate entity or something like that. But the very thing is if you just think about this, I mean, if every accusation, of course, if you compare this, the idea that no, innocent until proven guilty, people are just using that as an excuse to, be rape apologists or to dismiss or deny or not have to deal with allegations of sexual misconduct. Okay, some people could be. I'm not. And the fact that the idea that people are just plucking this out and using it in a way it wasn't intended, he's full of shit on that. Now, I don't know everybody's intention. I can't look into their soul when they use this an argument. But it's legally valid and sound if you think about it for a moment. Especially when it's not so much the outcome of these episodes, it's the process that's the punishment. Yeah, because if you take somebody out and they have to be dealing with this, we'll just use Brad as an example. So he has to do with this instead of doing what he's been doing. Then he has to decide, okay, am I going to keep on doing my podcast, or is that in bad taste because of these allegations? And he has to all this type of stuff, which is before any kind of guilt or guilt has been established. And Jeff is A-okay with that. I don't know if he'd be A-okay if it was him or someone he cared about, if it was females instead of a male. But I mean, this is kind of some fairly totalitarian, dystopian stuff. If you carry it through. If you carry it through beyond, we need to be really cognizant and careful and caring about this issue. But the way he is suggesting the things that need to be done, or what he's characterizing as rape apology, I'm just like, dude, I take offense to that. But
yeah, same here. I don't think he is following through on the implications of what he is saying, because he is so captured by again the sort of hegemonic socially liberal sort of ways of thinking that
he's performing something.
Yeah,
whether or not we all do to a certain extent. For who and for what aim, I don't know. I'm assuming, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that this is what he believes.
Well, no, because it's like,
I don't think it's like some sort of
it's the default. That's
made up thing.
That's the whole, and this is where I got to give that. This is where I got to give that Has guy credit, because he's so eloquently
Has-Aldin.
Yeah, he's
infrared.
so. Yeah, he is so eloquently articulated the difference between left aesthetics and the sort of co-option by the sort of liberal bureaucratic totalitarian system to sort of co-op.
You need a smaller word for that, Tony.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. But
PMC.
Yeah, the PMC. Yeah,
enlightened Stalinist. Jeff's an enlightened Stalinist. I don't know enough about him to know. Anyway,
Right. So it's like,
something.
but the sort of like default mindset of left aesthetics, the aesthetics of like left aesthetics is so, these people like Jeff are so enculturated within it that they can't realize that shit has become co-opted to essentially take away personal liberties and personal freedoms, which is what they're trying to do with Russell Brand. They're trying to throw him in prison.
Well, I don't know about that. My guess is that
Well, that's the end goal. I mean, that's what.
Well, I just think it's just to sideline him. I think it's just to sideline him.
Sideline him.
Yeah.
Sideline him, but also having real world consequences of not just sidelining and getting his TV show canceled and all that stuff.
Google demonetized him.
Yeah, taking away his livelihood, but there's also the sense of throwing him in prison, just like what happened with Bill Cosby. I mean,
I don't want to get into that.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah, but the thing is that there was that went through a process, yeah. So there was a series of things. There was a trial, and he was found guilty. So that's a bit of a different thing. But with Russell Brand. And again, fast forwarding now, it's been 8 months, maybe 9 months. I don't know. Is that nothing has come of this? Nothing legal has come of this. I think he should be suing somebody, but I don't know. Nothing legal has come of this. Yeah, but the cost, he's never gonna. I mean, again, the process and the taint is the punishment. So let's just presume that. So it's the idea that, and who knows? Maybe they wanted to fire a warning shot to be like, look, again, to quote Tate, sorry, people, when the Matrix comes for you, he's like this coordinated Matrix attack. And it's like, all right. But as a metaphor, it's quite interesting, especially if you look at how this all went down, what we tried to cover before. And again, people have gone into a deeper dive than I did, just in terms of how this was presented to us in the tempo and the space that it did. You had, I don't know if it was someone from the UK government, or it might have been from the EU, writing letters to Google and Rumble, asking them to demonetize, or to take, not just demonetize, but even to cancel his program, because they didn't want him to be able to use his platform to speak out about these allegations. I mean, what kind of totalitarian bullshit is that?
True.
So all the press is saying all this stuff. You don't have any forum to confront or to challenge your accuser in a court of law or through the state, and then you're not supposed to say anything about it at all on your YouTube channel. I mean, this is some authority. This is something. And any kind of left that I want to be a part of, and any kind of I don't know what this is, but it's not what they suggest it is. And if this is the kind of left that Jeff envisions, he can enjoy it, because I will be opposed to it every step of the way.
Same here, because it's like, again, because if Jeff doesn't understand that by enabling this sort of mindset to exist, what he's doing is he's essentially going by what the system, the matrix, what it wants. This is what the CIA
establishment, yeah,
exactly. This is what the CIA, MI6. This is what they want. They want this sort of confusion, and that's how I look at it, and I don't want to be a part of. And this, this is where I will give those MAGA communist guys. This is where I will give. This is where I will give them this. They understand this concretely, and this is part of their critique. And this is what they say as well. And I will give them that they are correct on this. I will give them that they are correct on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, and they're not all one bunch. Yeah, the BAMs what I call born again male Marxists. Right, they're a subset.
yeah.
They're the 15 to 24-year-old guys. They've read part of volume 1, and they will quote it at you. Okay. So let's see. Let's go back to what Jeff has to say about this rampant rape a culture of rape apologizing or rape apologists and dismissing. I don't know, whatever. Okay, let's see. Continue on with your audiobook voice, Tony, please. Thank you.
Jeff
This is serious.
I know. Okay. Jeff's suggestion that the public should discuss a woman's experience of rape without substantive evidence is both absurd and dangerous. This approach risks inciting mob rule and prejudicing trials with propaganda and moral panic. The public lacks the means to test evidence rigorously, which can only be done in a court of law under established rules of evidence.
So, I know you read the article as well. Do you want to respond to this before I do, or?
No, you can respond to it.
Okay. So yeah, it's this idea that when you have this, again, this kind of sensationalization of these allegations. So we'll keep it to the brand thing. So you have this 4-year thing, what they found. Whatever, you know, I'm not going to get into the intricacies of allegations because some of them are fairly. There was one that was that if it happened, that if what she said is how it happened, I would hope that she would file a charge. But there was 3 of them that seemed kind of, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. But it's that to go on and have it constantly be recounted and then other people weighing in and all this stuff, and then the documentary with the actors, like this dramatic reenactment of the interview, of the interview that the 2 investigative journalists had with these 4 with the 4 women that had something that they wanted to print in that article. That having this go round and round is fine, even though we don't know if there's anything to it or not. And it's like, first of all, if let's just take the UK for example, that the UK still has a responsibility for ensuring somebody a fair trial, and if the media has so fucked that up, then you could end up participating in the denial of justice for accusers that you say that you want. Yeah.
Right.
And also it gets in this thing because the people are seeing it, and if they're taking it at without a grain of salt and become convinced that this man is a monster, that they're that every woman that comes in contact with them is in mortal threat. That's not good.
No,
when it's solely based on allegations that have yet to be investigated fully by police, not 2 journalists who seem to be looking for a particular type of story, or through the process that you have as it goes through what the police find, and then what the prosecutor does, and then what's added into court, and then you get the defense and it makes all that kind of stuff. That this somehow is no problem for him. This should be encouraged even. This would be a good thing.
Right, and that's sort of the implicit implication that he is conveying.
Yeah,
Right.
and I'm like, no. First of all, it doesn't have to be a show. Yeah. I don't know. Fortunately, I've never been sexually assaulted. If I had, and I went to the police, and they were like either just and I thought they weren't really doing anything, or if they looked into it and said, I'm sorry, but there isn't enough to charge. And then I went to a reporter to try to get my story out because of that. That's one thing, but I still wouldn't want to advertise every single detail like it's some sort of atrocity porn for example. It's like, why? I'm sure we're all aware of as adults of what that can entail, and why having it be so public and out there, under the thing of someone's experience is like, I just find it. I don't see the value in this position as well. I think, again, it's one of those things that maybe when you first say it sounds good because, again, it's in this kind of matrix speech, if you want to use that word, of, raising voices, platforming, lived experience, all of that.
Yeah,
Like, I wouldn't want, if my daughter or my son or something was involved in something like this, I wouldn't want to have them out there, sharing the intimate details of one of the worst things that could happen to somebody. And
right.
then, or would want someone to be able to do that because, you don't know, people want to think that someone who makes an assertion is automatically an angel. People can have all kinds of reasons for doing this. I don't know what they are. I don't know these women. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying we know for a fact that there can be a variety of reasons for going on this track: attention, payback, money, notoriety, book deals, whatever it is. And I'm certainly not saying that that's what these women are doing. I have no idea, but people have done it in the past. Excuse me, Amber Heard. Anyway, so that's just and come from me, Amber Heard people. I watched that trial and I came in not having any. Actually, I probably came in on it being slightly more on giving her the benefit of the doubt because of the age difference, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't take long for me to be like, holy these people, this is a toxic thing. And if there's an abuser in this situation, sorry, it was her. Anyway, that was my assessment. I flashed back because I made myself watch that craziness. Anyway, so I guess we're on the same page here that what he's suggesting is not going to do anybody is not only that it wouldn't be good for those who are being accused. I don't think it'd be good for those who are doing the accusing, and I don't think it'd be good for the public in general to encourage this type of publicity blitz.
Yeah, no, it doesn't do anyone good because it just lacks coherence and it
sensationalizes it.
Yeah, exactly. It creates this like kind of just it's just it doesn't have any coherence. It's let things play out in the courts and then we'll see. I don't want things playing out the way that this man is unfortunately not realizing how he's kind of framing it. I don't want a man's livelihood to be taken away based off of anonymous allegations, without much evidence. I just don't want anyone's livelihood to be taken away like that. It doesn't matter who it is,
Well, more than a life, like the livelihood, like a life. And there was when this happened, or right before it happened, there was a case in the States. I think might have been a high school football dude or something. Anyway, he was accused of rape and he was found guilty. And 3 years later, the woman recanted, said that she had made it up because I can't remember why. She was mad at him or something had happened. Jesus. And so this kid lost like a scholarship. He was in prison for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and that went through the whole process.
Right.
So it's like, and I don't know what happened in that town, if there was a big, and because I wasn't in the States at the time, if there was a lot of, media blitz about it, about, how again, about toxic masculinity in the locker rooms and how, whatever it is. And not that there isn't some of that, but yeah. Okay. So we're also not buying this. Let's see the next one. Okay. All right. Okay. No, this is. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry. It's kind of similar, but a bit different.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tony.
Okay. Jeff claims that public discourse involving allegations is appropriate, forgetting that formal investigations protect individuals from baseless accusations. His stance ignores a principle of due process, which is designed to prevent the destruction of innocent lives by unproven claims.
Yeah. And this isn't all, and of course it originated with the state, but it's like, there's a reason why the burden of proof is put upon the state in criminal accusations, because taking away somebody's, putting somebody through this and possibly putting them in prison is no small thing. So there's a reason why we have processes, and now they're far from perfect. There's a lot of problems, and also in the States, for example, there's a lot of people. A lot of it depends on what you can afford. If you can afford
True.
a good legal counsel, then you might be. Then it's good. But if you're somebody who can't do that, and you have to rely on public defenders who are encouraged or incentivized to plea out, to encourage people to plea out, there's lots of problems. But just this kind of public discourse is just like, oh, so someone makes an allegation and it gets spread all over the place in a positive light, not pushed back. Well, again, it depends, because if it's Tara Reid and it's inconvenient because of the presidential election, then that can be, pushed aside. She can be character assassinated. It's fine. But if it's Russell Brand and it's not inconvenient to the current political economic interests, then it's just a field day, wall-to-wall coverage. And it's like, again, this manufacturing of consent, who they pick, who's how they treat different accusers and different accused differently, isn't just because of the newsworthiness of it, far from it, or because of the strength of the evidence, or the reporting as well. That's not what's making the deciding factor here.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's what we have to sort of stress, because I think, allegations are appropriate in the sense of getting the discourse going, in the sense of understanding whatever may have occurred. But allegations on their own aren't enough to immediately determine innocence or guilt, right? Like, yeah, there was allegations swimming around Jeffrey Epstein, but a lot of, everything else had to develop after those allegations were kind of swimming.
And again, he was charged and put under house arrest for like statutory rape and some sort of trafficking. I mean, that was in Florida, but it was really clamped down.
Right.
There was a story about a reporter or two who wanted to make a big deal and wanted to push it further, and she was blocked at every turn.
Okay, yeah, so exactly. And then, also...
So it's not about the women either that they're so concerned about.
Right. Also...
I'm not saying Jeff, but I'm saying the media structure.
If we're going to, we have to be fair, too, in regards to President Biden, because, he doesn't actually, there isn't a legal history of him having a background of abuse.
Yeah, but why should that matter? I mean, there wasn't any there's never been a charge. There's no criminal record for Brand as well on those regards.
What I'm saying, I'm playing fair here is a sense of like, I'm just like, because Jeff could easily throw in your face, well, hey, look, I mean, because he could easily say, oh, well, you're allowing Tara Reid's allegations to determine in your mind if President Biden is innocent or guilty of rape.
No, I'm not.
No, but I'm just saying.
I'm just saying that looking at, again, from the media thing, let's looking at the difference in the treatment is the only thing.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what happened there either, but the difference in the treatment says a lot in terms of people trying to present themselves as caring about women and wanting to make sure that that everyone's allegation is treated seriously and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. Yeah, the difference in the coverage and all that. I'm just saying that, in regards to what he's saying that allegations are appropriate. Okay. But also in regards, if he wants to do that, then I'm going to say, okay, well, so is concrete evidence and everything that follows the allegations. That's all.
Well, no, I think what I got from it is that even if it's just an unfounded, as we know, like allegation hasn't been tested or backed up. Yeah. That shouldn't preclude people from talking about it from sun up till sundown and reciting and talking and going on and on for weeks or 2 weeks on end. That's a good thing, or it's not a bad thing. So this is getting about the trial by media, yeah. And I would say that this is in general and as a rule, it's not a good thing. And he's trying to say that, no, that's just, you just don't want to, I don't know, I'm diminishing the seriousness of the thing. And it's like, look, now, if somebody, so let's say that one or more women filed charges against Russell Brand. That's totally newsworthy. I could see going there, trying to find out what's going on and saying, okay, 2 women have brought charges and then going into that, that's fine. or anybody else for that matter that they decided is newsworthy. But that's not what happened here. Yeah, I mean, this was again this was a feeding frenzy
Mhm.
for likes and viewers, and also to put the stick to him because he'd been eating he'd been embarrassing media people on both sides of the Atlantic for a couple of years, and it's just like, had all the makings, fall from grace, all this stuff. So that's what I'm talking about. It's not that, like, but the idea that I could go and make an allegation against, let's say, somebody who's somewhat known. Oh, I don't know who. Keir Starmer, hypothetically, okay. And I come out and say, man, and I just start saying that I was at some conference and he was there, and we were in the elevator together, and he just got really, I could just whatever it is, I just say that, and then I should be able to say that, and then go on, and then if every network, not that they would want to, because they want Starmer to win, most of them, and go on every network and everything and recount my story and be very, and that would be fine. Even before there's any look into, like, was I there or not? Could we possibly have been in the elevator at the same time? Because then again, you're not being nice enough. You're victim shaming, or you're survivor shaming, or whatever it is. And I could be like, yeah. So it's just as a thing. This also, if you think about it for a moment, for more than a moment, and kind of do a thought experiment, you can be like, this, I don't see how this is good for anybody in general, as a norm, to make this the norm, the shift.
Yeah, you're right.
I just don't see how that helps.
No, it just continues to poison the social well. It just continues to make things even more fractured, ever more poisoned, ever more polarized. Because at that point, then things will become so poisoned and so polarized that what we will get 10 years from now is essentially warring factions.
Lawfare on steroids. Lawfare and warfare.
Yeah, you're just going to get Team Tara fighting Team Joe. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Team Jeff apparently today. Oh, so this is how like just crazy my life is now. I don't know what it is. Is that when I decided to take the time to read over his exegesis here and to do a response, I thought, okay, well, am I going to are you laid down now? This looks like some sort of 1970s house porno movie. This is freaking out, Tony.
I have to, because, like, dude, we're like almost 4 hours and I have long legs. I have to stretch.
Okay, but I only see part of your face.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're gonna wrap up though, Tony, this marathon session. And who's gonna edit this video? Okay. Anyway. Yeah, this is kind of funny. So, I like to have my fun, I mean, you got to have fun. So it just kind of cracked me up, because when I had heard that, when I noted that he shared the link to my article, or my Substack article, sounds a bit fancy, to the group chat, and I was like, okay. And then that he had put his article as a response, I was like, oh, shots fired, man. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, sweet Jesus. So I just posted my response to his article.
And what was the response to your response?
Well, no, this is so high school now. Let me tell you what he did to me. Oh my God. Here's the sequence of here's the facts of the matter. After this thing with over the Andrew Tate tweet, and I'm told I'm a bad feminist, and he's all this that I've already been through. Fine. It made me think of this brand thing, and so I thought, so I went to my Substack that's kind of been in mothballs for the last few months. And I thought, I'm just going to repost it. And I also thought, oh, maybe now Tony and I should do a show on it because it's not so hot. Yeah. I mean, it's still hot, but not so radioactive. And then someone lets me know in the group chat, in a side chat. This is how it is. It's all high school. Oh, did you know that Jeff posted your article in the group chat, and then posted one of his in response? I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. And so then I thought, great, now I'm gonna have to read this. And so then when I did, and I realized how bad it was, I was just like, oh my God. And I thought, okay, I can't, I mean, and then you start thinking like, well, he started it, he posted my thing here. So it's like, should I really be using this group chat I'm like, well, I'm just going to come. I'm not going to, go on. I'm just going to, reply to his response.
Right.
And of course the people in there like liking it and hundreds because of course it's great because of course Andrew Tate's a rapist. And of course anyone who would dare say anything about due process is just, it's just bullshit, or who cares, or I don't know, whatever it is. And fair enough, people can, it's great. It's always a group building exercise to dunk on the same person, so I get the fact that if you have a circle virtue signal over Andrew Tate or over some bad feminist who dared to share a tweet of his, political tweet of his, that, fine, have your fun. I'm sure I'm guilty of similar things in my youth. However, so I went in there, and so I just thought, okay, I'm just going to so I find his post, and then I hit reply, and then I just put my response to it, just like FYI. And then I couldn't resist. I added that GIF of from The Wire that says, "If you come for the king, you best not miss."
And what did he say to that?
I don't know. And so then I just put, also thanks, but in all seriousness, something like this, thanks, because now I have this will be the second segment or the third part of our podcast tonight. We're going to compare and contrast, my article to yours. ... Thanks for the content.
What a snarky little response. Yeah.
And then I left, because again, it's there's like 60 or so people in this, so I'm not gonna,
Just get into a back
and so
forth.
I don't, but this is funny. Because I'm gonna totally go high school now. I don't know if people can know, but if you have your messages thing open in Twitter, you'll get like the first 4 or 5 words or something, or the first like a little preview of whatever the last message was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't gonna go in there because I thought I've said what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it for the podcast. I did mean to thank you because it gave good content, and that's fine. But really, after I gave my response, I really don't have anything else to say after that. I'm like, this is my response. You can like it, hate it, whatever. And I saw someone I saw there, and this is an anonymous name, so I'm not giving out anybody's name. So someone who goes by the handle Fido, and he said something like, "Oh, you should it should be a cross stream. Like, it would be fair if I would have Jeff on tonight to defend himself." I'm like, oh, now you care about fairness? Now you care about due process?
Right.
It's like, I'm just here, and I'm accusing you. I accuse. You can just go away while I have my accusation. It was so hilarious. I'm like, oh, now you want to have some sort of normative process that we have to adhere to maintain, cohesion. It was just hilarious to me. I was just like, whatever, yo. I mean, I didn't go because I don't know what happened after that. Because I was like, I can't get sucked into that. But it was so hilarious to me. I'm just like, it's not fair.
Right.
It was so funny. It should be a cross stream. Why? He's basically calling me a rape apologist. So my only response to that is the Beyonce two fingers, you know, for both of them. Oh, I'm a bad feminist because I don't call Andrew Tate a rapist all the time. Here's one for you. I'm a rape apologist because I care about due process. Here's one for you. I'm just like, what? You're gonna tell me to be nice? Sorry, I'm a bit riled up, but it was hilarious to me, and I thought I'm enjoying this too much. I need my next project to start.
Yeah.
Should be a cross stream. Yeah, cross stream my ass, bitch. I'm like, done.
Wait. So he never responded to your response?
No, I didn't go in after that.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't want it to be a whole thing. Because again, it's like 60 people in that chat, you know. So it's just I responded to him because he took it upon himself to put in my article that I had put on my regular feed and to use as a pretext to, you know, to try to showcase his fantastic analysis or recommendations. So I was like, well, and then once I read it, I was like, sweet Jesus, that people were actually thinking like, yeah, thumbs up. I'm like, well, and that's their and that's their right. You think that Jeff's piece is the way to go, and that I'm just, you know, a rape apologist or something, then that, you know, what can I do about that? That's your, you know, that's fine. But it was just like, and then I thought, oh my God, this is actually a gift. This is so bad, in my opinion. It's actually a gift.
Yeah.
Anyway, where are we? Okay, no, we're almost done. Okay, two more, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay. Jeff's willingness to destroy the lives and reputations of falsely accused is contrary to the principle highlighted by William Blackstone, emphasizing that it is better for guilty individuals to go free than for innocent people to be wrongly punished. Upholding due process and presumption of innocence is crucial to avoid such injustices.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of speaks for itself. And William Blackstone is like a well-known jurisprudence. Almost said Judas Priest, but that's not right. He's the lead singer of Judas Priest and a well-known legal scholar.
Wow, that would actually be pretty cool.
A man of many hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, yeah. So, and because his thing was that he's the opposite. It's like rather innocent men go to jail than a guilty one go free than the opposite. Again, he's for other people apparently. I don't know if he'd be on board with that, but in abstract, he's fine for signing other people up for this. I don't know, reparation, perhaps. Maybe it's like a reparation logic that given the all the sexual misconduct and violence that's gone unchecked and prosecuted in the past, that now men are just going to have to suck it up and risk being falsely accused and imprisoned for, I don't know, something. Anyway, what do you, I don't know. Do you want to disagree with my? Because you also read his article. Do you want to disagree with my point here? Feel free. I won't. I won't come. I won't come for you.
No, I just think you know, he's abiding by what in that sort of culture milieu that he is part of. You know, he's abiding by what, you know, see the initial reaction to the Me Too movement was that we all sort of collectively understood that a certain amount of abuse was being had by rich and powerful men. Do you understand what I'm saying? We all sort of tacitly acknowledged it, you know, and
there were lots of open secrets.
Yeah, and so, and that's fair, you know, because that's something that that's kind of was the elephant in the room, and but now, there's no need to like follow that line of thinking to this degree, because it inevitably leads to this mob mentality, and that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, it's almost some sort of like Clinton Tarantino. Is it Clinton? What's his name?
Quentin? Yeah.
Clinton. Like it's not Clinton. Like revenge fantasy. Yeah. So it's like
Right.
that we're like or like that women have a chance to put the clamps on men as payback for all this time of the men who got away with bad behavior getting away with it, and the people who enabled it, both men and women, all this stuff. And so it's like, innocent before proven guilty, out. Accuser is holy, in. If 10 men have to be 10 men have to get falsely accused and have their lives ruined to avoid one innocent a guilty one going to prison, so be it. It's like, it's just kind of almost like this, I don't know, like a Kill Bill gone wrong, or Kill Bill legal version, or Kill Bill culture war shift or something. We're tired now. We're losing our analogies, but we're almost finished with this treatise.
I love how you put the owl on the top hand corner.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. We got our logo going. I'm looking right at him. I'm looking right at him with the owl.
Yeah.
So, do you want to do this one, or shall I?
Yeah, I have no problem. Okay, so Jeff rightly notes that mob rule is not confined to any political affiliation. However, this also lacks rigor and fails to provide an objective view of how different groups handle allegations.
Yeah, so this is basically, the right does it too. Like, if they do it, we can do it. So like, if they do it, why shouldn't we do it? Or if they're gonna, I don't know if he didn't use the word weaponize. It's like, if they're going to, use this in this way and use the media in this way, then we should as well. And it's kind of like, and to me, it's like, well, all right. I mean, two wrongs make a right, or something like that. But he doesn't go into like very much details. Like, okay, like you could give two examples, like, and go like, okay, whatever. And again, the right and the left are quite large abstractions. So you could use Lewinsky as an example, and then what would be an example on the right? There's a couple of guys who were very opposed to gay marriage, who end up being on the down low. I guess maybe you could look at that, perhaps, or maybe Trump. Maybe, I don't know, the Trump versus the what did he have? Like, when he was like, you can, if you're a celebrity, get away with it. I can grab him by the whatever. And he had his, he had the Stormy Downs. He had all that. But you could look at that to make the case. But then you have to be like, still the idea that, why is this? Yeah, I just found this kind of basically just like, well, they do it too, or so what? I mean, I just found kind of like, he didn't really go very far with that. But I wanted to acknowledge that he is true. It's true that it's not just the right that will forgo due process and the rule of law and all those nice norms if they can score a political or economic point with it. But that doesn't mean that it should be the new that the idea that rule of law and due process and these types of things, even when people try to go around them or whatever, it doesn't negate the fact that they're important to have. It's kind of like the Chesterton fence thing. If you're familiar with that, the conservatives usually like to mention it, but I think it's also a nice. I think it's Keith Chesterton. I think he was a theologian, maybe also philosopher. Okay. But it's basically the idea: if you come across a fence, maybe think about why it's there before you tear it down. It's like, maybe it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe even there's some issues with it, but if you take it out, that you're gonna cause more problems than you solve. So it's also about thinking more systematically and upstream and downstream and whatnot. But yeah, I didn't find this particularly convincing. And then so here, I'll do the last part, because this is just my sum up.
Okay.
To Jeff. Be wary of opinions based on poorly researched evidence and sensationalism. Jeff's article is a prime example of sophistry over substance, offering an activist perspective without the necessary grounding in legal principles and due process. Allegations must be handled with care, respecting the rights of both the accuser and the accused to better ensure, of course not guarantee, justice and to avoid mob rule or what our equivalent of it or a modality of it, trial by media and the allegation industry and competing social media hashtags, with Free Johnny or Amber Turd or whatever it was. This type of thing.
Yeah.
So I would just say that I didn't find this to be at all convincing.
Mhm.
Even though, of course, I realized that the priest that I did was considered guilty of, engaging in this. What did he call it? Leftist rape apologists chime in about Russell Brand, ignoring or dismissing allegations. At least he uses the word allegations of sexual misconduct is not confined to a particular political orientation or ideology, but it's commonplace throughout the political spectrum. Yes, and that could very well be, but what you offered nothing to rectify it, only to worsen the situation.
Mhm.
I don't think totalitarianism is the answer, or mob rule. So an accuser culture, that the idea that you're innocent until accused and then automatically guilty is totalitarian, and you do not want to give the state that power because the state can find someone to accuse somebody of something.
True, and that's what the state is
or
saying.
anybody that has enough wherewithal, a corporation or whoever wants
Right.
to, opposition research or something, can find someone and either encourage them to come forward when they didn't want to, or encourage them to make to spin something in a particular way. Yeah, and you don't want to unleash this.
No, you don't.
And again, the idea there's even that's not, and again, how to balance accuser the rights of the accused and the rights of the accuser are important. I don't see how you can get away with having the onus being on the person accused, and they're going. Then usually that's either then if it's a civil trial, either way, it's the state has to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and in civil court it's not the state, but the state, of course, is the legal structure, or has to carry out the law and enforce it. But then there's still this thing, whether it be a jury or whether it be ever, there's still somebody that has to judge. Okay, who's in the wrong here, and to what extent, and in what way, and what damages are sufficient. And what he's suggesting would be a nightmare. So I hope that we don't embrace this kind of this moment that we've been in. I think that maybe started with OJ and it's just gotten worse. Anyway, anything you want to say before we finally sign off? It's been a marathon. Oh my God. Although I love spending time with you, this has been a lot.
Yeah, no, there's nothing much more I can add. I think
All
we
right.
covered everything, really.
You're looking very like I don't know what's going on here with the blonde, and I think you're like trying out for Cobra Kai or something. Like you're like the new instructor for the last season. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir.
I gotta go get a haircut.
Dude, you gotta get rid of that blondness. Don't let your sister do your hair anymore.
Yeah.
She's a professional.
No, you're right. I can't cheapen it out. Plus, I gotta keep the beard done and all that. But
yeah, you gotta get it. You gotta get it straight, man. You're looking a bit. I mean, you finished you're on summer break now.
Yes,
but still, if you can just chat with me for just a moment while I get my ducks in a row here, so there's not some weird awkward silence. Should we go out with this or should we with The Rock?
Let's switch it up. We'll go with the
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I don't know if anybody. Thank you for coming to this marathon live stream. We've covered a lot under the topic allegation industry, trial by media, and manufacturing of consent. Using the Brand case as an example, going through my article of focusing on how on the media spread on that, and how the consent was manufactured through the 5 different filters. And of course, the fact that the consent was manufactured to see Brand in a particular way doesn't mean that there's nothing to the allegations. We can't judge. We don't know enough to judge the allegations, but we do know that criminal charges have not been filed, and there's no court date, and so that it seems that at this point nothing much has come from it after that whole media firestorm. And then we shared an article that took a different take than mine, that would have considered my article a species of rape apology, and both Tony and I say hell to the no on that. And that's about it. That's all I can say. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we'll have some edited version of this, so there's in segments, so you don't have to go through the whole thing, although it's lovely if you do. And we'll be back soon with another morbid symptom. Take care, everyone. Bye, Tony.
Bye, Tara. You guys have a lovely rest of your day, audience.
That's right. Bye. Get that hair sorted out.
I will.